Hello, I'm Arthur Reed. Welcome to the World War II History Channel, where we explore the pivotal moments and untold stories of the greatest generation. Before the world broke apart, it was just a quiet Sunday, wrapped in the warm breath of the Pacific trade winds. Breathe in, just for a moment, and let time slip backwards. Let the noise of the modern world fall away. We are far, far away from the gray, restless shores of the mainland. We are drifting into the final weeks of 1941, settling gently into the emerald embrace of the Hawaiian Islands. It is a place that feels less like a military outpost and more like a beautifully kept secret. The air here is soft. It smells of blooming jasmine, of damp volcanic earth, and the endless, rolling sea. For the young men stationed here, a world at war feels like a rumor. It is a distant storm happening to someone else, on the far side of an ocean too wide to cross. They are so young. Farm boys from the sweeping plains of Kansas, city kids from the crowded brick streets of Brooklyn, quiet sons from the snowy mountains of Montana. They have traded their heavy winter coats for crisp, white cotton, and they wake up each morning to a paradise they had only ever seen on painted postcards. Imagine the quiet hum of a barracks just before the sun fully rises. It is Sunday morning. There is no rush today. There are no frantic drills, no sharp whistles cutting through the air. Instead, there is the comforting, domestic rhythm of young men going about their slow weekend chores. You can hear the soft snap of a towel, the gentle glide of a brush polishing leather shoes until they shine like dark glass. You can hear the low, easy murmur of voices. They are talking about the things young men always talk about when they are far from home. A girl they left behind. A baseball game. The promise of a weekend pass, the jingling coins in their pockets, and the taste of cold pineapple and shaved ice waiting for them in the bustling streets of Honolulu. They are not warriors today. They are just boys, folding their uniforms, writing quick, messy letters on thin paper to tell their mothers that they are safe, that the food is good, and that they have never seen water so blue. Think about the journey of those letters. A piece of thin, fragile paper folded carefully into an envelope, carrying the cursive handwriting of a 19-year-old boy. He sits on his bunk, the tip of his fountain pen hovering over the page. He tries to find the words to describe the vivid green of the Ko'olau Mountains, a color so rich and deep it looks like velvet. He tries to explain how the ocean here isn't just water, but a living, breathing expanse of sapphire and turquoise that seems to stretch on into eternity. He writes to his sweetheart, telling her that he misses her, that he wishes she could see the orchids growing wild along the fences, that he wishes she could feel the warm sand beneath her feet. He licks the envelope, presses it closed, and in that simple act, he sends a piece of his heart back across thousands of miles of empty ocean. Those letters are tiny anchors, tethering these young men floating in paradise back to the living rooms, front porches, and dusty roads of their childhoods. Down in the harbor, the great steel ships are resting. Battleships, cruisers, and destroyers, tied up in neat, orderly pairs along the gentle curve of Ford Island. They look invincible. They look like sleeping giants, rising from the still, dark water, their gray paint catching the first golden light of the morning sun. Aboard these ships, the men are already awake, but the mood is remarkably relaxed. A few sailors are up on the wooden decks, leaning against the cold metal railings, sipping from thick ceramic mugs of black coffee. The steam from their cups spirals up into the cool morning air and vanishes. A trumpet plays the first soft notes of morning colors. The flag goes up, fluttering in the gentle breeze. It is a ritual of peace. It is a promise that everything is exactly where it should be. Down below, in the warm bellies of the ships, the scent of breakfast is drifting through the narrow passageways. Pancakes, bacon, the familiar, comforting smells of a Sunday morning kitchen. It feels so profoundly safe. It feels like nothing in the world could ever reach them here, surrounded by all that deep, protective water. The harbor itself is a marvel of quiet strength. It is a natural sanctuary, a shallow lagoon carved into the earth long before ships ever sailed these waters. The native Hawaiians called it Pualoa, the Long Hill, or the Water of Pearl, for the pearl-producing oysters that once rested in its muddy depths. Today, on this tranquil Sunday, it holds a different kind of treasure. It holds the gentle lives of thousands of men, resting quietly on the water. On the USS Arizona, the band is setting up their instruments on the aft deck, getting ready to play. The brass of their trumpets and trombones catches the sunlight, gleaming brightly against the dull steel of the ship's massive turrets. There is a gentle, rhythmic creaking of the mooring lines as the great ships shift imperceptibly with the tide. But peace, even when it feels as heavy and permanent as a battleship, is sometimes just an illusion. While these young men rested, while the island slowly woke to the sound of church bells and gentle surf, there were other things moving in the dark. Hidden truths, secret plans, and silent operations were already shifting the tides of history, far beyond the horizon. There is always a shadow war taking place beneath the surface of the world we see. The things we don't know are often the things that shape our lives the most. And if you find yourself drawn to those hidden corners of history, to the secret operations and the untold stories that move silently beneath the surface of great events, I would love to share something special with you. I've put together a free ebook called The Shadow War, 5 Top Secret Operations That Shaped World War II. It explores the quiet, unseen realities that simmered just behind the curtain of the world stage. I send it out as part of my weekly email newsletter, where we take these quiet walks through history together. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. It's just my way of saying thank you for being here, for listening, and for helping keep these memories alive. Now, let us return to that gentle Sunday morning. Let us step away from the harbor for a moment and walk up into the green, sloping hills that overlook the water. Here, in the small, tidy homes of military families and local islanders, the morning is unfolding with the exact same sweet innocence. A mother stands at her kitchen sink, looking out through the window screen, watching the breeze playfully tug at the laundry on the line. Small children, still in their pajamas, are sitting on woven rugs, listening to the crackling voice of a radio announcer reading the Sunday funny pages. Dogs are sleeping in the warm patches of sunlight on the wooden porches. Everything is painted in the soft, beautiful colors of ordinary life. There is no fear here. Why would there be? The sky above them is a perfect, flawless blue, dotted only by a few lazy, wandering clouds. You can almost feel the warmth of that morning sun on your own skin. You can almost hear the soft rustle of the palm fronds, rubbing against each other in the wind, making a sound like distant rainfall. The world is breathing slowly. In and out. The rhythm of the tide, the rhythm of a peaceful morning. For so many of these people, this is the happiest time of their lives. They are young, they are deeply loved, and they are living in a place that feels untouched by the sorrow that is sweeping across the rest of the globe. They do not know that they are living inside a fragile glass globe, and that the glass is about to shatter. They only know the warmth of the coffee cup in their hands. They only know the melody of a Hawaiian guitar drifting from a neighbor's open window. Time is a strange thing. When we look back at history, we often rush toward the loud moments, the tragic moments, the moments when everything changes. We focus on the fire and the steel. But there is a profound, almost heartbreaking beauty in the quiet moments just before. Let us stay here, just a little longer, in the quiet. Let us watch the sailor on the deck as he finishes his coffee and smiles at a joke his friend just told. Let us watch the mother brush her daughter's hair, humming a soft tune under her breath. Let us honor them not just for what they are about to endure, but for who they were in this exact, unbroken second. They were hopeful. They were completely, beautifully ordinary. The sun climbs a little higher into the sky. The shadows on the grass begin to shorten. Out on the water, a small breeze ripples the surface of the harbor, making the reflections of the great gray ships dance and shimmer. It is just before 8 o'clock in the morning. The air is still, the world is quiet, and the fragile morning holds its breath, completely unaware of the thunder that is waiting just beyond the clouds. There is a profound kind of magic in a piece of paper, folded twice and sent across a vast and lonely sea. Listen to the quiet rustle of a notepad. The soft, rhythmic scratching of a fountain pen moving across a blank page. It is evening now, or perhaps a quiet stretch of Sunday afternoon, in the humid, softly lit compartments below the decks of the great ships. The air is thick with the scent of brass polish, wool blankets, and the salty dampness of the harbor. Here, sitting on narrow bunks, resting their notepads on their knees or on footlockers, the boys of the Pacific Fleet are writing home. They are building bridges of ink, connecting this distant, sun-drenched paradise to the places they left behind. It is early December. Back home, in the small towns and sprawling cities of the mainland, winter has already settled in. Frost is clinging to the window panes in Ohio. Snow is drifting against the wooden porches in Minnesota. But here, the evening breeze carries the sweet, heavy perfume of plumeria and the warm breath of the ocean. Imagine a young sailor, barely 19 years old, his hair still damp from a shower. He leans forward, his brow furrowed in deep concentration. He is writing to his mother. He tries to explain to her what it feels like to spend December without a coat, to eat fresh pineapple instead of winter squash, to look out and see a horizon that is nothing but an endless ribbon of blue. He writes about the local children who dive for pennies in the harbor, their laughter echoing across the water. He tells her that he is eating well, that his uniform is clean, that she shouldn't worry about him. He presses hard on the paper, his cursive letters thick and dark. Between the lines of his simple updates is a silent, gentle plea. I miss you. I miss the smell of your kitchen. I miss the sound of the screen door closing. Further down the passageway, another young man is writing to a girl. He has her photograph tucked inside his hat, a small, black and white square with slightly worn edges from how many times he has touched it. He smiles as he writes, a soft, private smile that no one else sees. He tells her about the Hawaiian moon, how it looks larger here, how it paints a silver path across the ocean that seems to point straight back to her. He promises that when his tour is over, he will come back. He promises they will buy a little house with a front yard. He seals the envelope, holding it to his lips for just a second before tossing it onto the growing pile on his blanket. These letters are innocent. They are filled with mundane details, complaints about a strict officer, the excitement of an upcoming baseball game between two rival cruisers, requests for a favorite brand of candy or a new pair of warm socks. They do not speak of war. They do not speak of fear. They speak of tomorrow. They speak of next month, and next year, and all the long, beautiful decades they assume are waiting for them. The handwriting is a mirror of their souls. Some of it is elegant, looping across the page with practiced grace. Some of it is messy, rushed, filled with crossed-out words and ink blots, written by hands that are more used to turning wrenches or guiding plows than holding pens. But every single word is a tether. Every single letter is a heartbeat, preserved on paper, waiting to be carried across thousands of miles of water. Think about the journey of those mailbags. Canvas sacks, heavy with the collective love and longing of thousands of men, hauled up from the depths of the ships and loaded onto small boats. They are carried to the mainland by steamer or by the great flying boats that cross the sky. It is a slow journey. A letter written today might not reach a farmhouse in Iowa for 2 weeks. Uncovering these letters today, dusting off the fragile, yellowed pages and reading the faded ink, is like stepping into a sacred room. It is a quiet, delicate process. Reading their words, you can feel their presence so deeply it brings an ache to your chest. Preserving these voices, keeping the humanity of these young men alive against the vast backdrop of history, takes countless hours of gentle, dedicated searching through dusty archives and forgotten boxes. If you find peace in these quiet stories, and if you believe in the importance of remembering these everyday moments of love and resilience, I have a small jar over on Ko-Fi where you can leave a tip, even just $1, to support this deeply personal research. It helps me dedicate the time needed to sift through the echoes of the past and bring these intimate letters back into the light. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. Your support is a gentle hand that helps keep these memories breathing. Let us return to the quiet bunks, to the soft scratching of the pens. Not all the letters are easy to write. Sometimes, a young man sits staring at the blank page for a long time. There is a quiet resilience required to be so far from home. A private, unspoken loneliness that settles into the chest when the lights go down and the harbor grows quiet. Sometimes, they don't know how to say that they are homesick because they want to be brave. They want their fathers to be proud. So, they write cheerful words. They write about the sunny weather and the beautiful beaches, hiding their small, human fears behind a wall of bravery and bright ink. They are doing their best to protect the people they love from their own loneliness. It is a quiet, beautiful kind of heroism. The heroism of a son who lies and says he loves the Navy food, just so his mother won't spend her evening worrying that he is hungry. There are letters from young husbands, too. Men who have left behind pregnant wives, waiting anxiously for news. They write about the children they haven't met yet. They suggest names. They draw clumsy little pictures in the margins, a palm tree, a boat, a smiling face. They fold the paper with heavy, gentle hands, trusting the mail system to carry their love across the great expanse of the Pacific. When the mailbags are finally sealed, tied tightly with heavy twine, they sit on the docks waiting for departure. They are time capsules. They hold the world exactly as it was on that quiet weekend in December. A world at peace. A world where the biggest worry was whether a sweetheart was dancing with someone else back home, or if the package of homemade cookies would arrive before they went stale. Many of these letters would reach their destinations long after the world had changed. Imagine the heartbreaking tenderness of a mother, standing on her frozen porch weeks later, receiving a letter dated early December. The handwriting is his. The words are full of life, full of complaints about the heat, full of plans for the future. She holds the paper in her trembling hands, reading the words of a boy who was safe and happy in the sunshine, written in a time before the thunder rolled into the harbor. But tonight, in this moment we are sharing, the thunder has not yet come. The envelopes are simply being licked and sealed. The ink is drying in the warm, salty air. The boys are clicking their pens closed, turning off the small reading lamps, and settling down into their blankets. They close their eyes, lulled to sleep by the gentle, rocking motion of the great steel ships, and they dream of the mainland. They dream of snow, of front porches, and of the faces that are waiting for them at the end of their letters. The harbor is peaceful. The stars are scattered across the dark velvet of the sky like spilled sugar. The words they have written sleep quietly in the canvas bags, a million quiet declarations of love, waiting to cross the silent, unseen ocean. Even in the brightest sunlight, there are always shadows stretching across the water, carrying quiet warnings from far away. Close your eyes again. Feel the gentle pull of the Pacific tide, breathing in, breathing out. We are still in the warmth of Hawaii, still lingering in that sweet, fragile innocence of late 1941. But let us look closer. Let us look past the swaying palms and the bright smiles. Let us look at the men who spent their days staring out at the vast, empty horizon, their brows heavy with a quiet, unspoken weight. There was a feeling in the air. Not everywhere, and not among everyone. Most people went about their days, buying groceries, reading the Sunday comics, swimming in the warm surf. But for a few, for the men sitting in windowless rooms with headphones pressed tightly to their ears, or standing watch on the high towers, there was a subtle shift in the winds. It was a tension that didn't have a name yet. It was like the stillness before a summer storm, when the leaves stop rustling and the birds go quiet, and you can feel the pressure changing against your skin. You know something is coming, even if the sky is still clear. Imagine a young radio man working the late shift. The room is small, lit only by the soft, amber glow of the dials on his equipment. The air is warm and smells faintly of ozone and hot metal. He sits there in the silence of the night, listening to the static, to the endless, hissing breath of the great ocean. He is listening for whispers in the dark. He is listening to the faint, crackling voices of ships moving silently across the Pacific, of distant stations sending coded messages that look like nonsense on the paper. He doesn't know exactly what the messages mean. That is not his job. His job is just to listen, to catch the fragments, to weave a net of sound and try to catch the unseen things moving through the deep water. But he knows the rhythm of the ocean. He knows what peace sounds like on a radio frequency. And lately, the rhythm has been changing. It feels restless. There are sudden silences that last too long, and bursts of activity that feel sharp and urgent. He takes off his headphones for a moment, rubbing his tired eyes. He looks at the photograph of his wife on his desk, her smiling face frozen in time. A quiet fear flickers in his chest. A profound sense of vulnerability. He realizes, with a sudden, aching clarity, how far away they are from home. They are a tiny speck of light in a massive, dark ocean, and out there, in that darkness, something is moving. He doesn't speak of this fear. He doesn't write about it in his letters home. He carries it quietly, a small, heavy stone in his pocket. He returns his headphones to his ears, picks up his pencil, and continues to listen, an unseen guardian keeping watch in the night. This quiet burden was shared by others. An older officer, standing on the deck of a cruiser, watching the sun dip below the horizon, painting the clouds in bruised shades of purple and red. He has spent his whole life on the water. He knows its moods. He smokes his pipe, watching the smoke drift away, feeling a deep, instinctual unease that he cannot explain to his young, laughing sailors. He sees their bright faces, their complete trust in the safety of the harbor, and he feels a fierce, protective love for them. He wants to wrap the steel of his ship around them like a blanket. He wants to promise them that they will all go home. But he looks out at the darkening water, and the words catch in his throat. There is a strange, quiet heroism in carrying a fear you cannot name. And standing watch over a sleeping house when you think you hear a noise outside, but you don't want to wake the children. These men were the fathers of the fleet, the silent watchers, holding their breath while the rest of the island slept. They sought comfort in small things. A fresh cup of coffee, the familiar, grounding routine of polishing their boots, the quiet conversations with trusted friends and hushed voices. Do you feel it too? They would ask, without really asking. A simple nod, a shared look, was enough. They were bound together by this unseen tension, a brotherhood formed in the shadows. It is a profound thing to look back at these moments, to understand the heavy quiet that rested on the shoulders of so few. The history we read in books is often loud and definitive, filled with stark facts and clear answers. But real history, the kind lived by ordinary people, is often much quieter. It is full of doubts, whispers, and the unseen currents that pull us toward tomorrow. If you find yourself drawn to these deeper currents, to the unspoken fears and the quiet resilience that shape the human story, I have a place where we explore these shadows together. Over on Patreon, I share uncensored deep dives, raw podcast episodes, and stories that are sometimes too complex or quiet for a wider stage. It is a warm, close-knit community of people who truly love history, not just the loud parts, but the quiet moments in between. If you would like to sit with us and listen to the deeper echoes of the past, I would love to welcome you there. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. It is a quiet harbor for those who want to understand the full, deeply human weight of our shared history. Let us return to the gentle shores of Hawaii, where the shadows are still long, but the morning is approaching. Imagine the wives of the officers sitting on their lanais in the evening, sipping iced tea while the children play on the grass. They, too, felt the subtle shift. They noticed the longer hours their husbands were keeping, the quiet, distracted looks over dinner, the way a hand would linger just a moment too long on a shoulder before heading out the door. They didn't ask questions. They understood the silent rules of this life. Their heroism was in their steady smiles, and the calm grace with which they poured the tea, and the quiet strength they projected to keep their homes feeling safe and normal. They wrote their own letters, keeping the tone light and cheerful, talking about the local markets and the beautiful weather, shielding their families on the mainland from the faint, trembling anxiety that was beginning to thread through their days. They were holding up the sky with their quiet resilience, creating a sanctuary of normalcy in a world that was slowly beginning to tilt. The unseen tensions crossing the ocean were like a low, humming vibration in the floorboards. You couldn't see it, but if you stood very still, you could feel it in your bones. Yet, life went on. The band still played on the deck of the Arizona. The sailors still lined up for their evening liberty, their uniforms crisp, their faces bright with anticipation. The harbor still glowed with 1,000 points of light, reflecting off the still water like fallen stars. The beauty of the island remained unbroken, a lush, green paradise floating in the vastness of the Pacific. We can see the storm approaching, because we are looking back through the lens of time. We know what is waiting in the clouds. But they did not. They only had the quiet whispers of the radio static, the instinctual unease of an experienced sailor, the subtle, loving worry of a wife holding her breath. Let us sit with them in the shadows for a moment. Let us honor their quiet watchfulness. Let us remember that before the world changed, there were people who stood in the quiet, looking out at the dark horizon, feeling the weight of the unknown pressing against their hearts. They were entirely human, holding onto their small, ordinary lives with all their strength, hoping, praying, that the morning would bring nothing but the sun. To stand on the edge of an island is to realize just how small we truly are against the endless, breathing expanse of the ocean. Let the modern world fade away once more. Take a slow, deep breath, and let the gentle rhythm of the Pacific surf wash over your thoughts. In, out. The waves are folding onto the pale sands of Oahu, leaving delicate, foaming lace in their wake before slipping back into the deep. It is a comforting sound, a natural lullaby that has rocked this island to sleep since the dawn of time. But as we linger in the waning days of 1941, let us look out at that water. Let us look past the shallows, past the colorful reefs where the silver fish dart through the sunlight. Let us look all the way out to the edge of the world, to the unseen horizon. There is a profound isolation in living on an island, surrounded by thousands of miles of open sea. For the young men stationed here, the Pacific Ocean was a marvel, a beautiful, sunlit playground. But it was also a wall. A liquid barrier of deep, silent blue that separated them from everything they had ever known. Imagine a young sailor from a dusty farm town in Nebraska. He had never even seen salt water until the Navy put him on a train heading west. Now, the ocean is his entire world. In the quiet hours of the early evening, when his duties are done, he walks down to the edge of the water. He takes off his white canvas shoes and lets the cool, wet sand press between his toes. The breeze tugs at his hair. He shades his eyes and looks eastward, toward the mainland. But he cannot see it. He can only see the sharp, flat line where the sky melts into the sea. He stands there, a solitary figure against the vastness, feeling a quiet, heavy ache in his chest. It isn't fear. It is just the soft, tender melancholy of being so very far from home. He remembers the smell of sweet hay drying in the sun, the sound of crickets in the tall grass, the creak of the wooden porch swing where his mother sits in the evenings. Here, there are no crickets. There is only the endless, rushing sound of the surf. He whispers a quiet word into the wind, a small greeting to the family he cannot see, hoping that somehow the air will carry his love across the thousands of miles of empty water. This was the quiet reality of the Pacific Fleet. They were living in a paradise, yes, but it was a lonely paradise. The water that cradled their great steel ships was the very same water that kept them isolated from the world. Think of the military wives, the young mothers who had packed up their lives into wooden crates to follow their husbands across the sea. In the late afternoon, a mother sits on her small, woven patio chair. The air is warm and heavy with the scent of wild ginger. Her children are playing in the grass, their laughter bright and clear. She watches the sun begin its slow descent, turning the ocean into a brilliant sheet of hammered gold and violet. Her husband is out there, somewhere beyond the horizon, on a routine patrol. She looks at the beautiful, shimmering water and feels a sense of deep comfort. The ocean seems like a giant, protective moat. It is so vast, so immense, that she cannot fathom anything ever crossing it to bring them harm. The water is a blanket that wraps around their island, keeping the troubles of the world far, far away. Yet, when night falls, the ocean changes. When the sun slips behind the curvature of the earth and the sky bruises into indigo, the water turns black and unknowable. The wind picks up, rattling the screen door of her small house. She stands at the window, holding a warm cup of tea, and looks out into the dark. The horizon disappears entirely. There is no line between the sky and the sea anymore. There is only an endless, velvet void. In these quiet, solitary moments, a tiny, unspoken worry flutters in her heart. She wonders what is out there in the dark. She realizes that the very ocean that protects them also hides whatever might be moving toward them. The horizon is a beautiful illusion. It paints a picture of endless peace, a serene and unbroken line. But beneath the surface, beneath the gentle curve of the earth, the world is moving. We often prefer to look only at the peaceful surface. It is comforting to see just the golden sunsets, the swaying palm trees, and the pristine white uniforms of boys who believed they were safe. But history, true history, is not always painted in the soft watercolors of a quiet evening. The serene horizon often hides the harsh, unvarnished realities of the world. There are parts of this history that are stark, parts that remain hidden from public view because their reality is difficult to bear. Yet, to truly understand the depth of what these people endured, to fully honor their quiet resilience, we must sometimes look past the peaceful surface. If you feel ready to look beyond that serene horizon, to see the history that is often too harsh for the gentle surface of platforms like this, I have carefully put something together for you. I've created a digital collection on Gumroad featuring unseen, raw images and archival videos of the era, the unvarnished, restricted realities of the war that are vital to truly grasping the immense sacrifice of that time. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. It is a space for those who wish to see the whole truth, stripped of its protective illusions. Now, let us return to the gentle evening breeze, blowing softly through the wooden slatted windows of the island homes. Let us stand again with the mother in her quiet living room. She takes a sip of her tea, letting the warmth settle in her chest. She turns away from the dark window and draws the thick curtains closed, shutting out the vastness of the unseen ocean. Inside, the lamps cast a warm, golden pool of light over the worn rugs and the children's scattered wooden toys. She turns on the radio, and the soft, crackling sound of a jazz band playing in a Honolulu hotel fills the room. It is safe here. It is warm. She tucks her children into their small beds, smoothing the cotton sheets over their shoulders, kissing their foreheads. Down in the harbor, the great battleships are settling into the night. The water slaps gently against their massive steel hulls. The sailors on watch walk the wooden decks, their footsteps quiet and rhythmic. They lean against the cold railings, looking out at the black water, watching the harbor lights reflect on the surface like fallen stars. They do not know what lies beyond the darkness. They do not know what the horizon is hiding. They only know the comfort of their routines, the familiar weight of their polished rifles, the smell of the salty air, the quiet companionship of the man standing watch beside them. In the bunks below deck, thousands of young men are sleeping. Their breathing rises and falls in unison with the gentle rocking of the ships. They are dreaming of the mainland. They are dreaming of snow-covered streets, of warm kitchens, of letters waiting in tin mailboxes. They are completely, beautifully vulnerable, cradled in the dark arms of the ocean. The Pacific breathes in, and it breathes out. The island sleeps. The night is deep and quiet, holding onto the fragile peace for just a little while longer, as the unseen horizon waits in the dark. Morning broke over the island like a soft, golden breath, painting the world in colors too beautiful to last. Let us settle into this morning together. Let the stillness of the dawn wrap around you like a warm, familiar quilt. The darkness of the night is slowly lifting, dissolving into a sky of pale lavender and soft, blushing pink. It is Sunday, December the 7th. The trade winds are gentle today, barely a whisper through the broad, green leaves of the banana trees. The air smells of wet earth, of salt spray, and the sweet, heavy fragrance of night-blooming jasmine that lingers just before the sun burns the dew away. This is a morning built for resting. It is a morning that stretches out lazily, asking nothing of anyone. Down in the great harbor, the water is as smooth as dark glass. The massive gray silhouettes of the fleet sit quietly at their moorings, completely still. There are no engines roaring, no loud commands echoing across the water. The only sounds are the gentle, rhythmic lapping of the tide against steel hulls, and the distant, mournful cry of a seabird looking for breakfast. Inside the ships, the world is slowly coming to life, but it is a soft, domesticated kind of life. In the galleys, the cooks have been awake for hours. Imagine the warmth of those kitchens, a sanctuary of light and heat deep inside the cold metal of the battleships. Large metal pots are simmering. The rich, dark scent of roasting coffee beans floats down the narrow passageways, weaving its way into the sleeping quarters, gently nudging the boys awake. There is the comforting sizzle of bacon on the griddles, the clatter of thick ceramic plates, the smell of freshly baked bread. A young sailor, his eyes still heavy with sleep, walks into the mess hall. He is wearing his undershirt, his hair tousled. He grabs a warm mug, letting the heat of the coffee seep into his palms. He sits across from a friend from his hometown. They don't talk much at first. They just sit in the companionable silence of a shared morning, watching the steam rise from their cups, listening to the muffled sounds of hundreds of other young men slowly beginning their day. They are thinking about the afternoon. They are thinking about the liberties they have planned, the clean white uniforms they will wear, the sweet shaved ice they will buy from the vendors in Honolulu. In the barracks on shore, another boy is carefully ironing that white uniform. He has a towel spread out on his footlocker. He moves the heavy iron back and forth, watching the steam hiss and rise, meticulously pressing a sharp crease into the trousers. He is only 18, but today, he wants to look like a man. He has a date with a girl he met last week at a dance. He hums a popular tune under his breath, completely absorbed in the simple, quiet task of making himself look sharp. In his pocket, folded tightly, is a letter from his mother that arrived yesterday. He hasn't opened it yet. He is saving it for the afternoon, something sweet to read while he sits under the shade of a palm tree. These are the small, beautiful details of a world at peace. It is a tapestry woven from thousands of ordinary threads. Up on the decks of the ships, the chaplains are preparing for Sunday services. Sailors are unrolling large canvas awnings to provide shade from the climbing sun. The canvas snaps playfully in the gentle breeze. Small wooden podiums are being set up. Crosses and stars of David are placed gently onto folding tables covered with white linen. The ship's band is sitting on wooden folding chairs, quietly tuning their instruments. A trumpet player softly practices the opening notes of a hymn, the brassy sound floating out over the water, sweet and melancholy. Boys of all faiths are beginning to gather, bringing their folding chairs, their hair slicked back, their faces scrubbed clean. There is a deep, quiet reverence in the air. A feeling of community, of being together in this beautiful, isolated place. If we close our eyes, we can almost see them, perfectly preserved in the golden light of that morning. The crisp white uniforms against the gray steel, the brilliant blue of the water, the emerald green of the hills rising behind the harbor. We carry these vivid pictures in our minds when we think of the Pacific Theater. We visualize the buoys, the ships, the vastness of the ocean. Connecting with this visual history is a powerful way to honor their memories, to see the world as they saw it. If you find comfort in holding onto these tangible pieces of the past, I love to recommend exploring the WWII memorabilia available on Amazon, or settling in to watch the beautifully crafted movie Midway on Prime, which paints such a vivid picture of the bravery of these young men in the Pacific. Taking the time to visually connect with their world keeps their stories alive in our hearts. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. It is a wonderful way to honor the legacy of that era from the quiet comfort of your own home. Now, let us wander away from the harbor for a moment, up into the lush, quiet neighborhoods of the island. The civilians are waking up, too. In a small house with wide, wooden eaves, a young mother is standing in her kitchen. The windows are open, letting in the cool morning air. She is slicing a fresh, ripe papaya, the bright orange fruit gleaming in the sunlight. Her husband is sitting at the kitchen table, unfolding the thick Sunday newspaper. He takes a sip of his tea, reading the comic strips, occasionally reading a funny line out loud. Their little girl is sitting on the floor, playing with a wooden block, her soft laughter filling the room. It is just a Sunday. A Sunday exactly like the one before it, and exactly like the one they expect will follow. There is no urgency. There is no fear. The world feels completely solid beneath their feet. Over at the military hospital, the night shift is coming to an end. A young nurse, her white cap pinned neatly to her hair, walks out onto the lanai. She is deeply tired, her feet aching from walking the wards all night, but her heart is full. She had spent the last hour holding the hand of a young Marine who was recovering from a bad fever, softly singing to him until he fell asleep. She leans against the railing, breathing in the fresh morning air, looking out over the harbor. The ships look so beautiful from up here. They look like toys, floating peacefully in a bath of blue light. She smiles, feeling a profound sense of safety and contentment. She thinks about going home, taking off her heavy shoes, and sleeping through the warm afternoon. The clock on the wall behind her ticks softly. It is approaching 7:30 in the morning. Back on the ships, the ceremony of morning colors is about to begin. The sailors stand at attention, forming neat, straight lines on the wooden decks. Their faces are serious, but relaxed. They know this routine by heart. The bugler raises his instrument to his lips. The first, clear notes ring out, piercing the quiet morning air. The sound carries across the water, echoing off the hills, a beautiful, solitary melody that commands respect. The American flag, folded into a tight triangle, is attached to the halyard. As the music plays, the flag is slowly, steadily raised into the clear blue sky. The wind catches it, and the bright red, white, and blue fabric unfurls, snapping proudly against the backdrop of the Hawaiian sun. Every man stops what he is doing. The cook in the galley pauses with his spoon in the air. The boy ironing his uniform stands up straight. The father on his porch lowers his newspaper. For a few brief moments, the entire island is united in a shared, quiet respect. They look up at the flag, feeling a quiet pride, a sense of belonging to something larger than themselves. The music fades. The flag flies high. The boys relax their posture. The Sunday continues. It is now 7:45. The sun is fully above the horizon, warming the steel decks, drying the dew from the grass. The sky is an impossible, flawless blue. There are a few fluffy white clouds drifting lazily toward the mountains, casting slow, moving shadows over the green valleys. Aboard the USS Nevada, the band strikes up a lively tune, the Star-Spangled Banner, their brass instruments catching the sun. The sailors waiting for church services tap their feet. A flock of white birds takes flight from the shore, their wings catching the light as they swoop out over the water. Let us pause here. Let us hold this exact second in our hands like a fragile glass ornament. Look at the young sailor, finally stepping out onto the deck, his white uniform perfectly pressed, a smile on his face as he looks toward the city. Look at the nurse, taking one last sip of her tea before turning to go to bed. Look at the mother, wiping the sticky fruit from her daughter's hands, her heart full of ordinary love. Look at the thousands of sleeping boys in the dark, warm bunks below the waterline, dreaming of snow and home. There is no pain here. There is no loud noise. There is only the gentle, swaying peace of a Sunday morning in paradise. The air is perfectly still. The water is calm. The world is breathing slowly, completely unaware of the shadow that is falling across the sun. This is the innocence of an era, resting quietly in the palm of history, just before the hands of the clock click forward. Sometimes, the sky holds secrets so heavy that the clouds themselves seem to hold their breath. Come away from the gentle, lapping waters of the harbor for a little while. Let us travel up, high above the sleeping ships and the quiet homes, up into the rugged, emerald peaks that crown the northern edge of the island. The air is different up here. It is crisp, thin, and cool, carrying the scent of damp volcanic soil and the sharp, clean fragrance of pine. It is early morning, still wrapped in the lingering shadows of the night. Here, sitting on a lonely, windswept cliff, is a small olive-green truck. It looks entirely unremarkable, just a canvas-covered shell parked in the dirt. But from its roof, a strange, wire grid reaches up toward the sky, turning slowly, silently, like a blind eye searching the heavens. Inside the back of this truck, the air is warm and smells faintly of hot metal, canvas, and old coffee. Two young privates are sitting shoulder to shoulder in the dim light. They are just boys, really. One is a quiet kid from the sprawling, flat farmlands of the Midwest, a boy who grew up watching thunderheads roll across endless fields of wheat. He is used to looking at the sky and predicting the weather by the shade of the clouds. Now, the army has given him a new way to look at the sky. In front of them is a machine. It is a marvel of the modern age, a complicated arrangement of dials, wires, and a round glass screen that glows with an eerie, soft green light. They are learning to read the invisible echoes of the world. The machine sends a silent, invisible pulse out over the vast, empty ocean, and if that pulse touches something out there in the dark, it bounces back, painting a tiny, glowing spike of light on the green glass. It is a lonely job. For hours, they sit in the humming quiet of the truck, staring at the flat, unbroken line of green light. The hypnotic sweep of the machine is like a metronome, ticking away the quiet moments of the dawn. They talk softly to pass the time. They talk about the breakfast waiting for them down in the valley, warm pancakes and thick syrup. They talk about the letters they hope will arrive on the next mail ship. They trade stories about their hometowns, their voices low and relaxed, a comforting murmur against the mechanical hum of the dials. The boy from the Midwest leans forward, resting his chin on his hand. He watches the green line. Up and down. A perfect, steady rhythm. The heartbeat of a peaceful ocean. He feels a profound sense of isolation up here on the mountain, separated from the sleeping world below by a thick blanket of morning mist. He is a watcher on the wall, but he deeply believes there is nothing out there to watch for. And then, the rhythm breaks. Suddenly, a brilliant pulse of green light blooms on the glass screen. It is not a tiny spike, like a stray seagull or a single, wandering airplane. It is a massive, jagged mountain of light, rising so high it nearly touches the top of the glass tube. The young man blinks, his eyes adjusting to the sudden brightness. He leans closer, his breath fogging the edge of the screen. He points a finger at the glowing anomaly. He taps the shoulder of his friend. They sit in silence for a moment, bathed in the green glow, staring at this impossible ghost on the glass. There is no panic in their hearts. Only a profound, innocent confusion. They are so far removed from the idea of danger that their first thought is a simple, mechanical one. The machine must be broken. It must be a glitch, a phantom echo caused by a loose wire or a strange turn of the weather. The boy taps the side of the wooden console, hoping to shake the ghost loose. But the mountain of light remains, pulsing steadily, growing slightly larger with every sweep of the invisible beam. It is coming closer. Whatever it is moving through the sky, carrying the dawn on its wings. The boys share a look. A quiet, unspoken agreement. They should probably call someone. Just to be safe. Just to follow the rules. There is a small, heavy black telephone mounted on the wall of the truck. The young man cranks the handle, listening to the static hiss through the earpiece. Down in the valley, in a windowless room beneath a sprawling wooden building, another young man is sitting at a switchboard. He is tired. His shift is almost over. He has spent the night plugging and unplugging brass cords, listening to the mundane chatter of the island's night watchman. He is drawing idle sketches on a notepad, wishing he were asleep in his bunk. When the light blinks on his switchboard, he answers with a soft, tired sigh. The voice that comes through the earpiece from the mountain is hesitant. The boy up in the radar truck feels a little foolish. He describes the massive spike of light on his screen. He says it is the biggest thing he has ever seen. He says it is coming in fast, straight out of the northern horizon. The switchboard operator writes the message down on a slip of paper. He carries it across the quiet room to the only officer on duty. The officer is a pilot, a man used to flying through the clear blue skies, not sitting in a dark basement looking at slips of paper. He reads the message. He thinks for a moment. He knows that a flight of friendly, heavy bombers is scheduled to arrive from the mainland of California this very morning. They are due any minute. He connects the dots in his mind, drawing a comforting, harmless conclusion. He walks over to the telephone. He speaks into the receiver. His voice is calm, reassuring, and completely devoid of fear. "Don't worry about it," he says softly. Up on the mountain, the young private holding the phone hears those words. Don't worry about it. They are like a warm blanket settling over his shoulders. The tension he didn't even know he was holding drains out of him. He smiles at his friend and hangs up the phone. "It's just our own boys," he says. "Just the bombers from home, coming in for a landing." There is a devastating tragedy in miscommunication. In the tiny, fragile moments where history balances on the edge of a knife, and a single, well-meaning sentence pushes it into the dark. So much of the world's story is written in these quiet, unseen spaces. Behind closed doors, through static on a telephone line, and the shadow of classified machines and whispered secrets. If you find yourself drawn to the hidden layers of history, to the profound ways that espionage, secrets, and simple human misunderstandings have shaped the world we live in, I want to offer you something deeply special. I have put together a free ebook called The Shadow War, 5 Top Secret Operations That Shaped World War II. It is a quiet look into the unseen forces that moved the tides of history. I send it out through my email newsletter, where we take these gentle journeys into the past together. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. It is my gift to you, for sitting in the quiet with me. Let us return to the green glow of the radar truck, high on the windy peak. The two young men sit back in their canvas chairs. The anxiety is gone, replaced by a mild, sleepy boredom. The clock on the wall ticks softly. Their shift is officially over. The sun has risen enough to turn the sky outside from charcoal to a soft, pearlescent gray. They watch the screen for a few more minutes, purely out of habit. The massive pulse of light is gliding closer and closer to the center of the glass. It is a beautiful, terrifying ballet of technology, a glowing green warning that is completely misunderstood. To them, it is a friendly wave from their brothers in the sky. They imagine the tired pilots up there in the clouds, looking down at the Emerald Island, grateful to be arriving in paradise. They feel a quiet kinship with those phantom blips. Finally, the boy reaches over and turns the heavy dial. The machine powers down with a long, mechanical sigh. The green light shrinks into a tiny, bright, in the center of the glass, and then vanishes entirely, leaving nothing but a blank, dark screen. The unseen is unseen once more. They pack up their thermoses. They fold their jackets. They step out of the back of the truck and lock the heavy metal doors. The air outside is incredibly peaceful. The morning mist is thick, rolling over the ridges like soft white cotton. The world is muffled, quiet, and completely still. They climb into the cab of the truck. The engine sputters to life, a gentle rumble that vibrates through the floorboards. The boy behind the wheel puts the truck into gear, and they begin the slow, winding descent down the narrow dirt road toward the valley. They are looking forward to breakfast. They are thinking about warm coffee and clean clothes. As they drive down through the thick mist, they do not look up. They cannot see the sky through the heavy blanket of clouds. But high above them, just out of sight, the air is vibrating. The mist is hiding a swarm of dark wings, slicing through the damp morning air. The sky is full of engines, humming with a terrible, focused purpose, flying directly over the mountain where the boys had just been sitting. The radar had seen them. The warning had been caught, spoken into a telephone, carried through wires, and gently, tragically dismissed. The boys in the truck drive on, humming softly to a tune on the radio, enveloped in the comforting ignorance of the morning. They are completely innocent, carrying the last, fragile moments of peace down the mountain, while the whispers in the clouds finally break through the sky. There is a single, fragile moment between the flash of lightning and the crash of thunder when the entire world seems to hold its breath. Breathe in with me, slowly. Let us stand together in that quiet, suspended space. The morning is still draped in the soft, golden light of Sunday. The harbor is a mirror of blue, reflecting a sky so clear it looks like an ocean of its own. But high above, hidden just beyond the edges of the white, drifting clouds, the silence is beginning to tear. It did not start with an explosion. It started with a sound. A low, strange humming that seemed to vibrate not just in the air, but deep inside the chest. Imagine a young sailor standing on the wooden deck of a battleship. He has a broom in his hands, lazily sweeping away the salt that has dried on the planks overnight. He stops. He rests his chin on the wooden handle and looks up. He knows the sounds of the sky. He knows the deep, throaty rumble of the heavy American bombers, and the quick, sharp buzz of the local patrol planes. But this sound is different. It is a high, tight whine, like the angry buzzing of 1,000 wasps trapped inside a glass jar. He squints against the bright sun. At first, he sees nothing but the blue. And then, he sees them. They look like tiny, silver needles dropping out of the clouds. They are so high up, slipping through the morning mist with a strange, terrible grace. Down in the city of Honolulu, a mother is standing in her garden. She has a wicker basket resting against her hip, filled with damp, clean laundry. The air is still sweet with the smell of wet earth and gardenias. She hears the humming, too. She pauses, a white cotton sheet held loosely in her hands. She watches the silver specks multiply. 1 becomes 10. 10 becomes a swarm. They are flying in tight, neat formations, like migrating birds heading south for the winter. There is no panic yet. There is only a deep, innocent confusion. The human mind is a beautiful, protective thing. When it is faced with something it cannot comprehend, it tries to wrap it in the familiar. It tries to make it safe. The sailor on the deck smiles, shaking his head. He thinks it is a drill. He assumes the army boys from the airfield across the island have decided to put on a surprise Sunday show, a mock attack to test their readiness. He leans on his broom, watching with mild, entertained curiosity. The mother in the garden thinks the same. She shades her eyes with a soapy hand, admiring the precision of the pilots as they dip lower over the green hills. She feels a brief, fleeting annoyance that they are flying so low, afraid the noise might wake her youngest child sleeping by the open window. But as the silver birds drop closer to the earth, the illusion begins to fracture. The planes are flying so low now that the sailor on the deck can see the pilots inside the glass canopies. He can see the dark leather of their helmets. He can see the white scarves tied around their necks, fluttering in the wind. And then, as the planes bank sharply, turning their wings toward the sun, he sees the color. It is a bright, vivid red. A crimson circle painted on the metal wings, shining like a drop of fresh blood against the silver. It takes a long, agonizing second for the meaning of that red circle to travel from his eyes to his mind. The rising sun. The symbol of an empire half a world away. Before he can speak, before he can even draw a breath to shout a warning, the sky breaks. From the bellies of the silver planes, small, dark objects detach and begin to fall. They tumble through the air with a terrible, lazy slowness. They do not look like weapons. They look like heavy raindrops, catching the sunlight as they fall toward the still water of the harbor. The sailor watches one fall. It seems to take a lifetime to reach the surface. Then, the water rises up to meet the sky. There is a blinding flash of white light, followed by a roar so profound it feels as though the earth itself is tearing in half. A massive pillar of water, mud, and gray smoke erupts from the serene harbor, reaching hundreds of feet into the air. The shock wave hits the side of the great steel ship, making it shudder and groan like a wounded animal. The broom falls from the sailor's hands, clattering uselessly against the deck. The spell of the morning is broken. The shattered sky is falling, raining fire and iron onto the peaceful waters. All around the harbor, the realization sweeps over the thousands of young men like a sudden, freezing wind. The coffee cups are dropped, shattering on the metal floors below decks. The carefully ironed white uniforms are suddenly heavy with dread. The musicians in the band stop playing, their brass instruments lowering as they stare upward in silent, absolute disbelief. It is a deeply surreal moment. The brain struggles to stitch together the profound beauty of the tropical morning with the sudden, impossible violence raining down from above. They are watching their sanctuary dissolve into smoke, and their first reaction is not anger, but a profound, heartbroken shock. Piecing together these fractured accounts, these fragile memories of a sky tearing apart, is a deeply emotional journey. It requires sifting through hundreds of handwritten letters, reading through tear-stained diaries, and carefully holding the echoes of that morning up to the light. It is a labor of love, a dedication to making sure these ordinary voices are never lost to time. If you feel moved to support this immense research, to help keep these deeply human stories alive, I have a small support jar over on Ko-Fi. Even a tip as small as $1 helps me dedicate the time needed to gently weave these fragments back together into the beautiful tapestry of our shared history. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. Your quiet support means the world to me, and to the memories we are honoring. Let us return to the deck of the shuddering ship. The air, which just moments ago smelled of ocean salt and roasting coffee, is suddenly thick with the sharp, acidic scent of cordite and burning oil. The blue sky is rapidly disappearing, swallowed by thick, roiling clouds of unnatural black smoke. Yet, in the midst of this overwhelming terror, there are quiet, instant moments of profound humanity. The young sailor who dropped his broom does not run. He stands frozen for only a heartbeat before the instinct to protect takes over. Another plane screams overhead, its machine guns chattering, tearing splinters of wood from the deck. The sailor lunges forward, grabbing the shoulder of a younger boy who is standing paralyzed by the rail. He pulls him down hard against the cold steel of the deck, covering the boy's body with his own. He doesn't think about it. He just does it. It is an act of pure, reflexive love. Everywhere you look, this quiet heroism is blooming in the smoke. Below decks, men are pulling each other through narrow, darkening passageways, feeling their way along the walls as the lights flicker and die. They are calling out names. They are reaching out hands in the dark, refusing to let go of their brothers. Back in the hills, the mother watches the smoke rising from the water. The laundry basket has fallen to the grass, the white sheets spilling out onto the damp earth. She can hear the distant, heavy thud of the explosions echoing off the mountains, a sound that vibrates in the soles of her shoes. She turns and runs back into the house. She gathers her children in her arms, pulling them close to her chest, hiding them in the small space beneath the heavy wooden dining table. She strokes their hair, humming a trembling, desperate lullaby, trying to drown out the noise of the world ending outside her window. She holds them tight, her heart breaking for the young men down in the harbor, men she has never met, but who she knows are someone else's sons. The sky above Pearl Harbor is no longer a canvas of peace. It is a swirling storm of noise and shadows. The planes circle and dive like hawks, their engines screaming as they pull out of their runs. The water of the harbor, once so calm and clear, is churning with debris, churning with fear. But even as the sky falls, the human spirit refuses to break completely. Young men, some still in their pajamas, are sprinting across the open decks, ignoring the bullets raining down around them. They are tearing the canvas covers off the anti-aircraft guns. They are passing heavy shells to one another, their hands moving with a frantic, desperate grace. They are ordinary boys, farm hands, store clerks, mechanics, who have suddenly, terribly, been asked to hold up the sky. There is a profound tragedy in this loss of innocence. The transition from peace to war did not take months or years. It took only minutes. In the span of a few heartbeats, the quiet sanctuary of the Pacific was torn away, leaving behind a scarred and burning world. Let us stay with them in these first, confusing moments. Let us hold space for their disbelief, for their fear, and for the sudden, extraordinary courage they found when the blue sky betrayed them. Let us remember the way the world looked just before the smoke covered the sun, and let us honor the immense, quiet strength of the ordinary hearts that beat fiercely in the shadow of the shattered sky. Even the strongest steel cannot hold back the tide of destiny, but it can forever hold the echoes of the hearts that beat inside it. Let us drift gently, softly, toward the center of the harbor, toward a giant sleeping quietly in the shallows. The USS Arizona. She is not just a great machine of war, she is a floating city, a sanctuary, a home to more than 1,000 souls. Imagine the sheer, breathtaking size of her, resting in the cool, blue water of the early morning. Inside her heavy iron walls, generations of boys have grown slowly into men. They have painted her bulkheads, polished her brass until it caught the Hawaiian sun like a golden mirror, and slept shoulder to shoulder in the warm, dark belly of her decks. To the men who serve on her, she is a fierce protector. She feels permanent, rooted to the earth itself, a safe and unshakable harbor within the harbor. Just moments before the sky broke apart, the stern of the Arizona was a place of quiet music. The ship's band had gathered, their crisp white uniforms glowing brightly against the gray wood of the deck. They were setting up their wooden folding chairs, softly and meticulously tuning their instruments. A trumpet player wet his lips, pressing a brass valve. A clarinet breathed a soft, warm, fluttering note into the sweet morning air. They were preparing to play for the raising of the flag, their young minds focused gently on the melodies, on the sheet music fluttering in the breeze, on the slow rhythm of a peaceful Sunday. Down below, deep in the winding passageways of the ship, the rhythm was different. It was the rhythm of breath, of soft conversations, of simple paper being folded into envelopes. There were brothers on this ship. Real brothers, born of the same mothers, hailing from the same small towns with dusty roads and wooden porches, serving side by side. They shared quiet stories of home, protecting one another in this vast and lonely ocean. They were boys reading comic books, boys writing down their dreams, boys laughing at quiet jokes while the ocean rocked them gently in its vast cradle. And then, the shadow fell. When the Arizona was struck, it was not just a sudden noise, it was a profound, world-altering silence that followed a blinding flash of light. The great ship, the invincible fortress of steel, was pierced. It happened with a terrible, instantaneous swiftness. One moment, there was the promise of music and the comforting smell of morning coffee, and the next, a deep, devastating rumble tore through the very soul of the ship. The deck beneath their feet lifted, and a great plume of ash, smoke, and sorrow rose high into the sky, brushing against the innocent white clouds. We will not dwell on the fire, for the fire is too harsh, too loud for this quiet space. Let us dwell, instead, on the love that flared brighter than any flame in those dark compartments. When the lights went out, and the world tilted violently into darkness, there was no panic. There was only the reaching out of hands. Imagine a young sailor, thrown to the floor in the pitch black. The air is suddenly thick, and the cold water of the Pacific is rushing in. He cannot see his own hands, but he hears a voice. A soft, frightened voice of a boy who had just arrived from the mainland only weeks ago, a boy who was terribly homesick just the night before. The older sailor does not run toward the fading sliver of light leading to the upper decks. Instead, he crawls deeper into the dark, his hands sliding along the warm metal floor, feeling his way through the suffocating smoke, until he finds the younger boy. He pulls him close to his chest. He whispers that it will be all right. He holds him tightly in the dark. In the face of the unimaginable, in the very center of the storm, they became each other's anchors. There is a courage that does not roar. It is the courage of staying put when every human instinct tells you to flee. It is the courage of a young man taking off his own canvas life jacket to press it firmly into the hands of a friend who cannot swim. It is the quiet, unspoken vow that says, "I will not leave you in the dark." On the Arizona, that sacred vow was kept 1,000 times over in the span of a few fleeting minutes. They were trapped in the belly of their home, but they were not alone. They had each other. They held onto the hands they had played cards with the night. Before, hands that had helped them fold their white collars, hands that had patted their shoulders in the lonely, quiet hours of the night watch. The loss of the Arizona is a wound so deep, so profound, that it still aches when you stand on the quiet shores of the harbor today. It is a story of immense sacrifice, a story that asks us to sit in the quiet and truly listen to the echoes of those brave, gentle souls. To truly honor their memory, we must sometimes look closer, to understand the full, heavy weight of their humanity. If you feel a deep calling to honor this profound loss through deep dives into their lives, and to find a warm, respectful community of true history lovers who cherish these details, I welcome you to join our Patreon. There, we share free podcasts and unblurred historical insights, creating a sanctuary where these precious, unvarnished stories can breathe. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. It is a quiet space where we can gather, respectfully, to ensure that not a single act of their bravery is ever forgotten. When the smoke finally began to thin, and the terrible noise faded into a haunting, heavy silence, the Arizona was gone. She had settled into the soft, muddy embrace of the harbor floor, taking her boys with her into the deep. The music had stopped forever. The letters home were left unfinished, the ink washing away, sealed permanently in the dark water. The ocean closed over the steel, a quiet, sorrowful blue blanket drawn gently up to the chin of the sleeping giant. Above the surface, the surviving sailors swam through the dark water and the floating wood, their faces covered in black soot, their eyes wide with an impossible disbelief. They looked back at the empty place where their mighty ship had been, and their hearts shattered into a million pieces. The shock was a heavy, suffocating thing, pressing down on their chests. They wept for their brothers. They wept for the young musicians who never got to play their song, for the cooks who were making their breakfast, for the boys who had slept in the bunk just above them only hours ago. The water of the harbor was still warm against their skin, but the world had grown unimaginably cold. Even now, if you travel to that quiet harbor, the Arizona still weeps. Every single day, small, gentle drops of black oil rise from the wreckage deep below the surface. They float slowly up to the light and spread out in iridescent pools of purple, green, and gold, shimmering softly in the Hawaiian sun. The locals call them the tears of the Arizona. It is as if the ship herself is still mourning, still shedding quiet, persistent tears for the men she could not protect. Those gentle drops are a bridge between the past and the present, a whispered reminder from the deep that the love and the loss of that morning are still very much alive. Let us leave them here, resting quietly in the dark. Let us mentally pull the soft, gentle tide over them, and sing them a quiet lullaby of peace. They are no longer frightened. They are no longer cold. They are together, an unbreakable brotherhood resting softly in the cradle of the deep. They are forever young, forever brave, wrapped in the quiet, enduring reverence of a world that will never stop whispering their names. Sleep well, boys of the Arizona. The storm has passed, the water is calm, and your mourning is eternal. When the world above is lost to fire and chaos, the bravest hearts are sometimes found in the absolute, silent dark. Breathe in deeply, and let the noise of the surface fade away. We are leaving the bright, burning sky behind us now. We are slipping beneath the waves, down into the cool, heavy quiet of the Pacific. It is a strange and tragic reality that on this beautiful Sunday morning, the safest place for some was also the most terrifying. When the great ships turned over, their heavy steel hulls rolling like sleeping giants in the shallow harbor, they took hundreds of young men down with them into the deep. Imagine the sudden, disorienting shift. One moment, a boy is standing in a brightly lit corridor, feeling the warm Hawaiian breeze drifting down the open hatchway. And the next, the world violently tilts. The floor becomes the wall, the ceiling becomes the floor, and the ocean rushes in, swallowing the light. Then, there is nothing but the pitch black. A darkness so complete, so profound, that it feels like a heavy blanket pressing against the eyes. Down here, in the inverted belly of the capsized ships, the roaring of the battle above sounds muffled and distant. It is just a low, echoing vibration that hums through the thick iron bulkheads. The immediate world has shrunk down to a single, sealed compartment. The air is thick with the smell of spilled oil, salt water, and the sudden, sharp scent of fear. But listen closely. In that suffocating dark, there is no screaming. There is no frantic panic. Instead, there is the incredible, quiet resilience of the human spirit. Imagine a small group of sailors, huddled together on what used to be the ceiling of their sleeping quarters. The cold water is rising slowly, pooling around their ankles. They cannot see their own hands in front of their faces. But they can hear each other breathing. In the absolute dark, that sound, the steady, rhythmic breathing of a friend, becomes an anchor. It becomes a lifeline. A young mechanic, barely out of high school, reaches into his damp pocket and finds a small, brass flashlight. He clicks the button. The tiny beam of yellow light cuts through the darkness like a miniature sun. It is a fragile, dusty ray of hope. He sweeps the beam slowly around the compartment, and the light catches the faces of his brothers. They are covered in soot and oil, their eyes wide and bright, but when they see each other, an unspoken wave of relief washes over them. They are not alone. They gather close to the light. The older men instinctively place their arms around the shoulders of the younger ones. They are creating a human shield of warmth and comfort against the creeping cold of the ocean. They speak in hushed, gentle whispers, conserving the precious air. To keep the fear at bay, they do what human beings have always done in the dark. They tell stories. The boy holding the flashlight talks about his mother's kitchen in Ohio. He closes his eyes and describes the exact smell of her baking bread on a Sunday morning. He talks about the way the flour would dust the old wooden table and how the morning sun would stream through the lace curtains. In the cold, metallic belly of the sunken ship, that memory becomes real. For a few beautiful minutes, they are not trapped in the deep. They are sitting in that warm, sunny kitchen, safe and loved. Another sailor, a quiet farm boy from the plains, recites a poem he learned in grade school. His voice is a low, steady rumble that vibrates in the small space. He doesn't stumble over the words. He speaks them with a gentle rhythm, like a lullaby, soothing the trembling of the boy sitting next to him. They are holding hands, their fingers laced tightly together, passing their strength back and forth in the shadows. There is a profound, almost unimaginable weight to the stories of those trapped below the waterline. The courage it took to sit in that creeping darkness, listening to the water rise, and choosing to comfort a friend rather than surrender to terror, is a reality that is deeply humbling. History often softens the edges of these moments, shielding us from the true, harrowing depths of what these young men endured beneath the waves. But to truly honor their resilience, we must sometimes bear witness to the unvarnished truth of their sacrifice. If you feel ready to step closer to that truth, I have carefully gathered a digital collection on Gumroad featuring unseen, raw archival content and images that are simply too restricted and difficult to share on this platform. It is a quiet, respectful space meant for those who want to understand the uncensored reality of the war. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. Taking this journey into the archives is a deeply personal way to ensure the full, unyielding truth of their courage is never forgotten. Let us return to the quiet dark, where the small yellow beam of the flashlight is beginning to dim. The air is growing heavy, difficult to breathe. The water has risen to their knees. But then, a new sound cuts through the thick silence. Tap. 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 It is a faint, metallic clicking, vibrating against the thick steel wall of the hull. The boys freeze, holding their breath, listening with every ounce of their being. Tap. 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 It is not the random groaning of the sinking ship. It has a rhythm. It is deliberate. Someone is out there. The young mechanic picks up a heavy iron wrench from the floor. He wades through the water, presses his ear against the cold, damp bulkhead, and raises his hand. With careful, measured strikes, he taps back. Clang. 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 We are here, the wrench says. We are still alive. There is a long, agonizing pause. The silence stretches out, heavy and fragile. And then, through the steel, the answer comes back. A flurry of answering taps, faster this time, urgent and full of promise. Imagine the tears that finally fall in the dark. Not tears of fear, but tears of profound, overwhelming gratitude. They have been heard. The world above has not forgotten them. Up on the surface, balancing on the slippery, overturned belly of the great ship, sailors and civilian yard workers are kneeling in the well-slicked water. They are pressing their ears against the steel, listening to the ghosts below. When they hear the tapping answer back from the deep, they weep openly. They shout for heavy cutting torches, for hammers, for anything that can break open the iron cage. It is a delicate, terrifying rescue. They cannot simply cut a hole. The sparks from the torches could ignite the thick fumes trapped inside, or they could accidentally flood the compartment, drowning the very boys they are trying to save. It requires a painstaking, agonizingly slow precision. For hours, the rescuers chip away at the thick metal with pneumatic hammers, their hands bleeding, their muscles burning with exhaustion, refusing to stop, refusing to rest. Down in the dark, the boys wait. They listen to the deafening roar of the hammers against the hull. To them, it is the most beautiful music in the world. It is the sound of home coming to get them. The flashlight has finally died, leaving them entirely in the pitch black once more. But they are no longer afraid. The connection has been made. The steel bridge has been crossed. They lean against each other, their heads resting on wet shoulders, whispering words of encouragement. The younger boy, the one who was shivering just hours before, is now holding the hand of an older sailor, keeping him calm. The roles have shifted. In the dark, they have all become brothers, bound together by an unbreakable thread of shared survival. Finally, a tiny sliver of bright, blinding sunlight pierces the dark. The cutting torch breaks through. A small hole opens in the ceiling, letting in a rush of fresh, sweet air. The boys below take a deep, desperate breath, filling their lungs with the smell of the world they thought they had lost. The hole is widened, just enough for a human body. A pair of strong, calloused hands reaches down through the jagged steel, reaching into the darkness. One by one, the boys are pulled up from the deep. They emerge covered in thick black oil, their uniforms torn, their faces streaked with soot and tears. As they are lifted onto the bright, sunny surface of the overturned hull, they are caught in the arms of the rescuers. They are held tightly, embraced by strangers who weep into their oil-stained shoulders. They look out at the harbor. The sky is filled with smoke, the water is burning, and the paradise they knew is gone. But in that moment, as they feel the warmth of the sun on their skin and breathe the open air, nothing else matters. They are alive. They carried each other through the darkest place imaginable, armed only with a flashlight, a heavy wrench, and the gentle, unyielding power of their own humanity. Let us honor the quiet majesty of those trapped in the deep. Let us remember the stories they told in the dark to keep each other warm, the hands they held when the water rose, and the slow, steady tapping of hope against the cold iron. They show us that even when the light is entirely extinguished, the human heart can still find a way to shine. When the world breaks apart, it is the soft, unyielding strength of human hands that gathers up the pieces. Breathe with me now, and let us step away from the dark waters of the harbor. Let us walk up the sloping green lawns, away from the smoke, and into the wide, airy corridors of the island's hospitals. Before the sky shattered, these halls were places of profound, quiet routine. They smelled of clean linen, of rubbing alcohol, and of the sweet, floral breeze drifting in through the open wooden shutters. The nurses moving through these corridors wore dresses of brilliant, starched white. Their caps were pinned neatly to their hair, their shoes soft and soundless on the polished floors. They were just young women, so far from their homes in the Midwest, or the busy streets of the East Coast. They had come to paradise to heal the occasional broken arm from a baseball game, or to soothe a tropical fever. They were used to the quiet murmurs of a peaceful Sunday morning. Some had just finished the night shift and were brushing their hair, preparing to walk down to the chapel. Others were sitting on the lanais, drinking coffee, writing letters to their own mothers, talking about the warm weather and the beautiful dances they had attended the night before. And then, the quiet was replaced by the thunder. Imagine the sudden, overwhelming rush of reality pressing against those wooden hospital doors. The sirens began to wail, a lonely, desperate sound that echoed across the hills. And then, the boys began to arrive. They did not arrive in orderly ambulances. They arrived in delivery trucks, in the back of civilian cars, carried on doors that had been torn from their hinges to serve as makeshift stretchers. The nurses did not run. They did not scream. Faced with a tidal wave of sorrow, they simply put down their coffee cups, rolled up their white sleeves, and walked forward. There is a specific, quiet heroism in the hands of a healer. It is the courage to look at the unimaginable, to see the brokenness of the world, and to respond not with fear, but with a gentle, steady touch. Watch a young nurse as she kneels beside a cot that has been hurriedly placed on the grass beneath the palm tree because the wards are already too full. The boy lying there is covered from head to toe in thick, black fuel oil from the harbor. It is in his hair, in his ears, masking his young face entirely. He is shivering, not from the cold, but from the profound shock of what he has just survived. He cannot see. He reaches his hand out into the empty air, his fingers trembling, searching for something, anything, to hold onto in the dark. The nurse reaches out. She takes his thick, oil-stained hand in both of her clean, white ones. She does not care about her pristine uniform. She does not care about the soot staining her skin. She holds him tightly. She leans down close to his ear, her voice a soft, unwavering whisper in the midst of the chaos. "I am here," she says softly. "You are safe now. I have you." She takes a small basin of warm, soapy water and a soft cotton cloth. With infinite patience, she begins to gently wash the thick, black oil away from his eyes. It is slow, painstaking work. The oil is stubborn, clinging to the skin like a shadow. But her hands are relentless in their tenderness. Slowly, the black grease gives way to the pale, frightened face of a teenager. When he finally opens his eyes and sees her face, framed by the white cap, looking down at him with such profound compassion, a single tear cuts a clean path down his cheek. He whispers a quiet thank you. She simply smiles, brushes the damp hair from his forehead, and moves to the next cot, and the next, and the next. This is the true, unvarnished beauty of that morning. In the face of steel and fire, the greatest weapons these women possessed were warm water, clean bandages, and an endless reservoir of human empathy. Inside the hospital, the doctors are working with a quiet, focused intensity. They are civilian doctors who heard the explosions from their homes in the city, men who left their Sunday breakfasts, jumped into their cars, and drove toward the smoke in their church suits. Now, their suit jackets are cast aside. They are moving from bed to bed, improvising when the medical supplies begin to run low. When they run out of proper bandages, the nurses run to the supply closets and carry out armfuls of crisp white bedsheets, tearing the cotton into long strips. When the pain medicine is nearly gone, they use the only thing they have left, their voices, their presence, their gentle reassurances. It is a stunning display of love. To sit with someone in their deepest moment of fear, to wipe their brow, to let them know they are not alone. The visual memory of these healers, these angels in white moving through the smoke and the chaos, is one of the most enduring legacies of the Pacific Theater. It is a profound contrast, the purity of their dedication set against the dark tragedy of the day. Keeping the visual history of these young men and women alive is a beautiful way to honor their enduring spirit. We often connect most deeply with these stories when we can see them, when we can hold a piece of that era or watch the carefully crafted historical films that capture their bravery. If you wish to bring these visual memories into your own home, I warmly recommend exploring the authentic WWII memorabilia or the moving historical films available on Amazon Prime. It is a wonderful way to deeply honor their legacy. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. Bringing these stories into the light helps ensure their gentle bravery is never forgotten. Let us return to the quiet corners of the hospital wards, where the afternoon is slowly stretching into evening. The initial rush has passed, but the work is far from over. The corridors are lined with boys resting in the dim light. The scent of the plumeria blossoms outside is trying bravely to push through the smell of the medicine and the smoke. In a quiet corner, a young sailor with bandaged hands is sitting up slightly on his pillows. A nurse is sitting on a wooden stool beside him. She has a clipboard resting on her lap, a piece of thin stationery clipped to the wood, and a pencil in her hand. The boy is dictating a letter home. He wants to write to his mother. He stares up at the slowly turning ceiling fan, searching for the words. He does not tell her about the fire. He does not tell her about the noise, or the fear, or the friends he lost in the deep water. He protects her, just as the nurses are protecting him. "Dear mother," he whispers, his voice hoarse. "I am safe. I am in a good bed, and the nurses here are treating me like a king. Please do not worry when you hear the news on the radio. The weather here is still warm. I am eating well. I will write again soon." The nurse writes down every word, her handwriting looping elegantly across the page. She knows the truth of what he has seen. She knows the pain he is in. But she honors his beautiful, innocent lie. She signs his name at the bottom, folds the paper carefully, and places it in an envelope. She promises she will make sure it gets on the first mail plane out. He closes his eyes, a look of profound relief settling over his tired face, and he finally drifts into sleep. Where do the healers go when their own hearts are breaking? Imagine a small, windowless supply closet at the end of the hall. The door opens quietly, and a nurse slips inside, closing it softly behind her. The room smells of fresh laundry and iodine. She leans her back against the wooden shelves, and for the very first time all day, she lets her shoulders drop. She covers her face with her hands, and she weeps. She weeps for the youth of the boys she has tended to. She weeps for the shattered piece of her beautiful island. She weeps because the weight of so much sorrow is too heavy for one person to carry. It is a quiet, private morning, hidden away amongst the stacked towels and the boxes of soap. She gives herself exactly 2 minutes. Then, she takes a deep breath. She reaches into her pocket for a handkerchief, wipes the tears from her cheeks, and straightens her white cap. She pushes the door open and walks back out into the ward, her face a mask of calm, soothing certainty once more. Her boys need her. As the sun finally begins to set over the Pacific, casting long, purple shadows across the hospital lawns, the frantic energy of the morning softens into a heavy, exhausted quiet. The sky turns the color of bruised plums and soft indigo. The nurses walk softly between the beds, carrying small paper cups of water, adjusting blankets, checking the resting pulses of the sleeping sailors. They move like gentle ghosts in the twilight. They do not think of themselves as heroes. If you asked them, years later, they would simply say they were doing their jobs. They were just doing what anyone would do. But we know the truth. We know that in the darkest hours of that day, they were the light. They were the soft landing after the terrible fall. They were the gentle hands that washed away the oil and the fear, leaving behind only grace. Let the image of them rest gently in your mind. The white uniform in the fading light. The cool hand on a fevered brow. The whispered promise in the dark. Let us leave them to their quiet, sacred work, under the watchful light of the Hawaiian moon, knowing that as long as there is suffering in the world, there will always be hands willing to heal it. The wind, which had only ever carried the sweet scent of hibiscus and sea salt, suddenly brought a shadow that the sun could not burn away. Let us step back from the harbor and walk slowly up into the city of Honolulu. Come with me away from the gray ships and the uniformed boys, and let us wander through the quiet, tree-lined streets where ordinary life was suddenly, softly interrupted. It is still Sunday. The sky above the water is bruised and churning, but here, miles away from the docks, the morning had begun with the gentle, mundane routines of a day of rest. Imagine the colorful wooden houses, their wide porches wrapped in creeping vines of bright pink bougainvillea. A man in his undershirt was washing his car in the driveway, the water running in soapy rivers down the gutter. A group of little girls in their Sunday dresses were sitting on the edge of a sidewalk, carefully trading brightly colored marbles. The radio in a corner store was playing a slow, swaying Hawaiian melody. But then, the horizon began to change. A thick, dark veil began to creep over the tops of the green hills. It was a cloud unlike any they had ever seen. It was not the soft, white mist of the mountains, nor the heavy gray of a coming rainstorm. It was a dense, rolling curtain of black and bruised purple. As it drifted silently over the city, it blotted out the brilliant Pacific sun. The vibrant colors of the island, the emerald grass, the turquoise water, the bright coral flowers, were suddenly washed in a strange, unnatural twilight. And with the shadow came the scent. A heavy, metallic smell of burning oil and scorched earth, drifting into the pristine gardens and through the open, slatted windows of the living rooms. In a small house near the center of town, a mother is standing in her kitchen. She is wearing a simple floral apron, her hands dusted with white flour from kneading bread. She pauses, looking out through the screen door. The light in her kitchen has suddenly dimmed, as if a great hand has covered the sun. She walks to the door, wiping her hands on her apron, and pushes it open. She steps out onto the wooden porch. The air is surprisingly still, but little flakes of gray ash are drifting down from the sky, falling like warm, dark snow onto her neatly trimmed lawn. And then, she hears a sound. A sharp, distinct thud in the soft dirt of her flower bed. She walks down the wooden steps, her heart beating a slow, uneasy rhythm against her ribs. She kneels beside her prized orchids. There, resting in the damp, dark earth, is a jagged piece of metal. It is a fragment of anti-aircraft shrapnel, fired from the harbor, missing its mark in the sky, and falling back to the earth. It is still warm, smoking slightly against the wet soil. In that quiet, solitary moment, looking at the piece of torn iron in her garden, the illusion of safety softly crumbles. For so long, the civilians of the island believed they were protected by an invisible wall. They believed the vast ocean, and the mighty steel ships resting in the harbor, would keep the troubles of the world far away from their doorsteps. But the sky has no borders. The smoke does not know the difference between a military base and a civilian garden. She does not panic. The instinct of a mother is a profound, grounding force. She stands up, smoothing her apron, and walks calmly back into the house. She calls to her children, who are playing with wooden blocks on the rug. Her voice is entirely steady. It is soft, even, and full of a quiet, unyielding love. She tells them they are going to play a new game. They are going to build a fort under the heavy oak dining table. She gathers blankets and pillows, draping them over the sturdy wooden chairs to create a soft, dim sanctuary. She brings them plates of sliced fruit and their favorite picture books. She crawls in beside them, wrapping her arms around their small shoulders, creating a human shield of warmth and comfort. She reads to them in a soft, melodic whisper, her voice drowning out the distant, muffled thuds echoing from the harbor. She is terrified, yes, but her heroism lies in her absolute refusal to let her children feel that fear. She smiles down at them in the dim light of their blanket fort, the very picture of quiet, fierce grace. History so often focuses on the loud moments, on the grand strategies and the movements of great ships. The stories of the civilians, of the mothers in their kitchens and the children hiding under tables, are often buried beneath the thick smoke of that morning. They become forgotten whispers in the margins of history books. There are so many quiet truths, so many hidden realities that simmered just beneath the surface of this great conflict. If you find yourself drawn to these obscured moments, to the forgotten facts and the silent operations that truly shaped the world, I would love to share something special with you. I've put together a free ebook called The Shadow War, 5 Top Secret Operations That Shaped World War II. It is a gentle exploration of the untold stories hidden behind the curtain of history. I offer it as a gift through my weekly email newsletter, where we take the time to remember what others might forget. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. It is my way of honoring the quiet, unseen depths of our shared past. As the long, strange afternoon stretches on, the smoke over paradise continues to thicken. The people of Honolulu do not run into the streets. They do not riot. Instead, they do what people have always done when the world feels uncertain. They turn to each other. Imagine a quiet street corner, shrouded in a gray haze. An elderly man lives alone in a small cottage. He is sitting in his armchair, listening to the crackle of the radio, his hands trembling slightly on the wooden armrests. He is frightened. He has no family on the island to comfort him. But then, there is a soft knock at his door. He shuffles to the entryway and opens it. Standing there is the young woman from next door. She is holding a ceramic plate covered with a cloth napkin. Beneath the cloth is a warm piece of the bread she had baked that morning. She smiles at him, a gentle, reassuring warmth in her eyes. She asks if she can come in and sit with him for a while. They sit together in his small living room. She pours him a cup of tea. When he reaches for the cup, the china rattles softly against the saucer because his hands are shaking so deeply. Without a word, she reaches out and places her own steady, flour-dusted hand over his. She holds his hand until the trembling stops. They sit in the quiet companionship of neighbors, sharing a simple piece of bread, anchoring each other in the shifting tides of the day. This is the everyday heroism that goes unrecorded. The sharing of a pantry. The holding of a hand. The quiet offer of a spare bed to a stranger who couldn't make it home before the streets were closed. In the shadow of the smoke, the people of the island wove a tight, unbreakable net of human kindness. As the sun begins its descent, dipping below the unseen horizon, a new reality settles over the island. The radio announcers, their voices calm and serious, issue a new order. A complete and total blackout. When night falls, the island must disappear. There can be no light, no beacon to guide any planes that might return in the dark. Inside the homes, a new kind of quiet urgency begins. Families move through their houses in the fading twilight, gathering heavy wool blankets, dark towels, and thick paper. They stand on chairs and tape these coverings over their windows, sealing every crack, every seam. Imagine the feeling inside those rooms. It is suffocatingly warm, the heavy Hawaiian heat trapped inside by the closed windows and the thick wool. But it also feels like a cocoon. In a darkened living room, a family sits in a circle on the floor. In the very center, resting in a deep ceramic bowl to hide its glow from the outside world, is a single, solitary candle. Its small, golden flame dances and flickers, casting long, soft shadows against the walls. The children are finally sleeping, curled up on the rugs, their breathing deep and even, completely innocent to the changed world outside their taped-up windows. The parents sit awake. They do not speak much. They listen to the unfamiliar silence of their neighborhood. Usually, the Honolulu night is filled with the sounds of laughter, of distant music, of cars driving along the coastal roads. Tonight, there is only the wind rustling the palm fronds, and the distant, rhythmic crash of the unseen ocean. A husband reaches over and gently rests his hand on his wife's shoulder. She leans her head against his arm. In the dim, trembling light of the single candle, they find a profound comfort in the simple, steady presence of one another. They do not know what tomorrow will bring. They do not know how the world will look when the sun rises and the smoke finally clears. But in this moment, in this quiet, sealed room, they are together. They are safe. Outside, the island of Oahu, usually a brilliant, sparkling jewel in the vast darkness of the Pacific, has vanished. It is completely swallowed by the night and the smoke. It is a profound, heavy darkness. But beneath that darkness, inside thousands of small, quiet homes, the light of human love and quiet resilience burns on, a tiny, unextinguishable flame holding back the shadows of the long night. Let us sit with them in the quiet dark, and keep watch together, until the morning comes. There is a profound turning point in the human heart when the initial, paralyzing breath of shock transforms into the quiet, fierce resolve of courage. Breathe with me, and let us stand once more on the edge of the harbor. The world has already broken apart. The first, sudden storm from the sky has passed, leaving behind a thick, gray curtain of smoke that drifts lazily across the water, catching the morning sun and turning it into a hazy, bruised orange. For a few, fleeting moments, there is a strange, suspended lull. A silence that feels heavier than the noise. The young men standing on the decks, their white uniforms stained with soot, look around at the changed world. Their minds are still trying to catch up to the reality of the morning. They are hoping, with the innocent, desperate hope of youth, that the nightmare is over. They wipe their brows, their hands shaking as the adrenaline begins to ebb, and they look to the sky, praying for empty clouds. But then, the air begins to vibrate once more. It starts as a low thrum, deep in the chest, a vibration that travels through the soles of their shoes. It builds into an echoing roar, bouncing off the green mountains and rolling across the water. The sky is no longer empty. The second wave has arrived, bringing with it a renewed swarm of dark wings descending through the smoke. But watch carefully what happens next. The shock is gone. The disbelief has burned away. In its place rises something incredibly beautiful, something born of pure, instinctual love and brotherhood. The boys do not freeze this time. They do not drop their brooms in confusion. Instead, a sudden, improvisational courage washes over the harbor. Imagine a young cook, a boy from the deep south whose morning was meant to be spent peeling potatoes and stirring large pots of oatmeal. He is still wearing his white canvas apron, but it is no longer clean. When the echoing roar fills the sky again, he does not seek shelter deep in the galley. He runs toward the open deck. He finds a heavy, metal box of ammunition, a weight he was never trained to carry. His hands, soft from flour and warm water, grip the sharp metal edges. He lifts it, his muscles burning, and he runs toward the anti-aircraft guns. He becomes a lifeline. He passes the heavy brass shells to the gunners, his movements falling into a steady, rhythmic grace. Pass, load, fire. Pass, load, fire. He does not think of himself. He only thinks of keeping his brothers supplied. There is a quiet majesty in this kind of bravery. It is not the polished, perfectly orchestrated maneuver of a training manual. It is messy, it is frantic, and it is profoundly human. Men are fighting back with whatever they can hold in their hands. Mechanics are using heavy wrenches to break the locks off armory doors because the keys have been lost in the chaos. Sailors are resting the heavy barrels of rifles on the shoulders of their friends to steady their aim against the trembling of the ship. They are inventing their own survival, bound together by an invisible thread of absolute trust. Look at the young boy standing on the edge of the dock. He is holding a rifle that feels too big for him, pointing it toward the endless expanse of the sky. He is terrified. His heart is beating so fast he can feel it in his throat. But inside the breast pocket of his shirt, pressed tightly against that racing heart, is a folded letter from his sweetheart. He can feel the crinkle of the paper through the thin cotton of his uniform. That piece of paper is his anchor. As he stands his ground in the echoing roar, he is not fighting for a flag, or a government, or an abstract idea of a nation. He is fighting for the front porch where she is waiting. He is fighting for the right to go home, to sit on the steps in the evening, and to hold her hand in the quiet dark. The dedication of these men, their refusal to simply bow their heads to the storm, is a testament to the unyielding strength of the human spirit. They stood in the fire, fighting back not with anger, but with a fierce, protective love for the man standing next to them. Honoring these moments of bravery, and dedicating the time to gently brush the dust off these stories so they can be remembered, takes its own kind of quiet commitment. Sifting through the archives, reading the faded letters, and piecing together this deeply human history is a labor of love that I am so grateful to share with you. If you feel moved by these stories, and if you would like to help support the deep research it takes to bring these moments into the light, I have a small jar over on Ko-Fi where you can leave a tip, even just $1. It is a way to bridge the dedication of those young men fighting back, with our own dedication to keeping their memory alive. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. Your quiet support is a beautiful way to ensure these echoes never truly fade. Let us return to the boys in the smoke. The sky is a chaotic canvas, but if you look closely, you see the smallest, most intimate moments of connection. Two men, strangers just hours ago, are suddenly working in perfect, unspoken harmony. One is a civilian yard worker, an older man with graying hair and calloused hands. The other is a sailor, barely 18. They are standing near a damaged gun mount. The sailor is struggling to clear a jam in the heavy machinery, his hands slick with oil and sweat. The older man steps in beside him. He doesn't say a word. He simply places his steady, experienced hands over the trembling hands of the boy. Together, they pull the heavy metal lever. They share a single, fleeting glance, a look that says, "I have you. We will do this together." The noise of the second wave is deafening, a roar that fills the sky and the sea, but the boys have learned to focus past it. They retreat into a quiet place inside their own minds, a place where only the immediate task matters. The turning of a wheel. The lifting of a shell. The steadying of a breath. There are young men who have been wounded, men who have earned the right to lay down and rest, who refuse to leave the deck. A sailor with a bandaged arm, the white cotton already blossoming with dark red, uses his good hand to pass canteens of warm, metallic-tasting water to the gun crews. He walks through the chaos with the calm, soothing presence of a seasoned veteran. He is bringing them comfort, keeping them hydrated, offering a soft smile through the soot covering his face. The echoing roar continues, a terrible symphony playing out over paradise. But the island is awake now. The giant has been roused from its slumber, not with a unified, terrifying might, but with the scattered, desperate, and incredibly beautiful courage of ordinary people pushed to the very edge of the world. They are no longer the innocent boys who woke up thinking of baseball games and shaved ice. The fire has forged them into something new. They have aged a lifetime in the span of a single morning. But they have not lost their humanity. In fact, their humanity is burning brighter than ever before. It is in the way they pull each other from the water. It is in the way they share the last drops of water from a canteen. It is in the way they stand shoulder to shoulder, looking up at the sky, refusing to yield the ground they are standing on. As we sit here in the quiet, safe and warm, we can only imagine the true weight of that echoing roar. We can only imagine the heat of the brass casings falling to the deck, the smell of the burning oil, the taste of the ash on the back of the tongue. But we do not need to imagine the love that held them there. That love is a universal language. It is the same love that binds us to our own families, to our own friends, to the places we call home. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the roar begins to change. The swarm of dark wings in the sky begins to thin. The planes are turning away, banking back toward the unseen horizon, their terrible task complete. The engines fade into a high, distant whine, and then, eventually, they melt away into the vast, empty blue. The echoing roar recedes, leaving behind a silence that is so heavy, so profound, it feels like a physical weight pressing down on the harbor. The second wave is over. The boys slowly lower their empty hands. They lean against the warm steel bulkheads, their chests heaving, their faces painted in the dark colors of the morning. They look around at the changed world, at the smoke still rising, at the gentle, peaceful water that now holds so many secrets. They are exhausted. They are heartbroken. But as they look at one another, seeing the same quiet, unyielding resilience reflected in the eyes of their brothers, they know that they are still standing. The sky has fallen, the echo has faded, but their quiet, everyday heroism will ring out across the waters of history forever. When the final roar fades into the distance, the silence that takes its place is heavier than the falling bombs. Breathe in with me, slowly, and let the air out with a gentle, releasing sigh. The sky has emptied. The swarm of silver wings has turned away, slipping back over the unseen horizon, taking their terrible thunder with them. The echoes that had been bouncing off the jagged, emerald peaks of the Koalau Mountains finally settle into the earth. The air, which just moments ago was torn apart by screaming engines and desperate shouts, is suddenly, breathtakingly still. It is a ringing silence. A quiet so absolute and sudden that it feels like a physical weight pressing against the eardrums. For the young men standing on the decks of the surviving ships, this quiet is almost harder to comprehend than the noise. They stand frozen, like statues carved from ash and soot. The fierce adrenaline that had fueled their frantic hands and steadied their racing hearts begins to slowly recede, draining away like the outgoing tide. And as it leaves behind a profound, trembling exhaustion. Imagine a young farm boy from the plains of the Midwest. His pristine white uniform is entirely gray, stained with the dark, oily tears of the harbor. He drops a heavy brass shell casing onto the wooden deck. The soft clank of the metal sounds unnaturally loud in the still, smoky air. He looks down at his hands. They are slick with grease and water, shaking violently now that the urgent task is done. He cannot command them to stop. A friend, another boy he met just weeks ago on a long train ride toward the coast, steps softly beside him. He doesn't say a word. There are no words left in the world that make sense right now. He simply places a steady, warm hand on the boy's trembling shoulder. They stand there together, looking out over the water, enveloped in the heavy silence, breathing in ragged, shallow gasps. In this breathless quiet, they are no longer just sailors. They are brothers, bound together by a silent vow of survival. Let us wander to the shores, where the water laps gently against the docks. The harbor itself is weeping quietly. Thick, dark oil coats the surface, calming the small, natural waves, creating a terrible, mirrored stillness that reflects the bruised, smoky sky. Amidst the floating debris, the silence seems to amplify the smallest, most delicate sounds. You can hear the crackle of the lingering fires burning softly on the water. You can hear the gentle, tragic hiss of hot metal cooling in the sea. You can hear the distant, solitary cry of a seabird, circling high above, looking down at a world it no longer recognizes. Men are reaching into the oily water, pulling their brothers onto the docks. The splashes are muffled, muted by the thick fuel. They move with the slow, deliberate, heavy grace of people walking through a dream. Nobody is shouting anymore. The loud commands and the frantic orders have all been given. The terrible storm has already unfolded, and now there is only the heartbreaking work of gathering the pieces. Up in the hills, miles away from the docks, the civilians feel this same suffocating quiet. The mother who had hidden beneath the dining room table with her children slowly creeps out from her blanket fort. The house is perfectly still. She pushes open her wooden front door, the hinges creaking softly in the quiet air. The neighborhood is motionless. The wind has died down entirely, leaving the broad palm fronds hanging completely still, like silent sentinels standing guard over the island. A fine layer of gray ash covers her neatly trimmed green lawn, her bright pink orchids, her woven welcome mat. She walks back into the kitchen, picks up a straw broom, and steps back onto the porch. In a state of profound, numb shock, she begins to sweep the ash away. Back and forth. A gentle, rhythmic scraping sound against the wood. It is a simple, entirely ordinary motion. It is a desperate, deeply human attempt to bring a tiny piece of order back to a world that has lost its mind. She sweeps the porch, her tears falling silently into the dust, mourning the peace that drifted away on the morning breeze. This profound stillness that follows a great tragedy is a sacred, heavy space. It is in this exact silence that the true weight of history settles into the human heart. The loud noises of the world so often distract us, but it is in the quiet aftermath that we truly reflect, where we can sit with the ghosts of the past and listen to their whispered stories. Finding a quiet, respectful place to dive deeply into these reflections is so important for keeping their memories alive. It is exactly why I created a sanctuary over on Patreon, a warm, close-knit community for true history lovers. There, we step away from the noise of the modern world to share free podcasts, deep dives, and raw, gentle reflections on these deeply human moments. It is a peaceful harbor where we can hold these memories together in the quiet. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. It would be an honor to sit in the quiet with you there and hold space for the stories that need to be heard. Now, let us return to the quiet, bruised harbor as the afternoon slowly begins to stretch its shadows across the grass. The sun begins its slow, mournful descent. The light changes, turning the thick smoke into clouds of muted lavender and dull gold. Inside the shore barracks, a few sailors have returned to check their lockers, stepping softly over the debris. The rooms smell heavily of burning wood and salt. On one of the perfectly made bunks, a piece of thin stationery sits exactly where it was left just a few hours before. The fountain pen rests beside it, the cap still off. The letter is only half written. It begins with cheerful, innocent words about the warm Hawaiian sun, about the sweet taste of shaved ice, about a girl waiting on a front porch back in Ohio. A tiny piece of dark soot has drifted through the open window and settled softly onto the paper, smudging a handwritten word of love into a gray blur. The young sailor who wrote it walks into the room. He looks at his bunk, at the clean white sheets covered in the dust of the morning. He picks up the paper. He reads his own words, written by a boy who feels like a stranger to him now. The complete innocence of the morning is gone forever, replaced by the heavy, silent weight of a world at war. He does not pick up the pen to finish it. What is there left to say? The silence speaks for him. It speaks for all of them. He carefully folds the paper, protecting the smeared ink, and tucks it deep into his breast pocket, right over his heart. As the evening approaches, the silence only deepens, wrapping the island in a protective, velvet cloak. Inside the hospitals, the nurses move with quiet, padded steps, checking on the resting boys. The frantic triage of the morning has settled into a slow, watchful vigil. A nurse sits by a bedside in the dim light of a small lamp. She holds the hand of a sleeping soldier, her thumb gently tracing circles on his skin. She is listening to the steady rhythm of his breathing, finding immense comfort in the simple fact that he is still here. Her white uniform is ruined, her muscles ache, but her heart is full of a quiet, unyielding grace. The civilians in their homes sit in the absolute dark, the heavy blackout curtains drawn tight against the frames. They sit in armchairs and on woven rugs, holding their children close, listening to their own heartbeats in the suffocating quiet. They do not speak. They just hold each other in the dark, finding light in the simple, warm presence of their families. Down on the ships, the night watch begins. Men stand on the cold, damaged decks, peering out into the velvet darkness of the Pacific. They are wrapped in heavy wool blankets against the evening chill. Their eyes are heavy, burning with exhaustion, but they will not sleep. They refuse to look away. They stand guard in the quiet, holding a silent, heartbroken vigil for the brothers they lost to the deep water below. The harbor breathes in, and the harbor breathes out. The water laps softly against the twisted steel. The stars begin to pierce the dark sky, tiny pinpricks of silver light that look down, indifferent to the sorrows of the earth. The silence so heavy is not just the absence of sound. It is the overwhelming presence of memory. It is the invisible, unbreakable thread that binds all these ordinary heroes together, the nurse, the mother, the farm boy, the mechanic. It is a quiet, collective vow to never, ever forget the morning the sky shattered, and the immense, beautiful courage it took to stand tall in the stillness that followed. Rest now. Let the silence hold you. Let the gentle, rolling waves wash over the shores of the past, rocking the memories to sleep in the quiet, enduring dark. Even when the fires begin to dim, the ash remains, drifting down like a dark and quiet snow to blanket a changed world. Breathe in with me, slowly, and let out a soft, releasing sigh. Let the quiet rhythm of your breath be your anchor as we step back onto the shores of an island that has just survived the unimaginable. The violent thunder has completely rolled away, leaving behind a sky that is painted in muted shades of bruised purple and charcoal gray. The roaring has stopped. Now, there is only the soft, crackling sound of embers and the gentle, tragic lapping of the harbor water against the shoreline. But the water is no longer the brilliant, sparkling sapphire of the morning. It has been transformed. A thick, heavy blanket of dark oil has spread across the surface of the harbor, creating a strange, unnatural stillness. And in patches across this dark mirror, small, quiet fires are burning. They flicker with a mesmerizing, sorrowful orange glow, casting long, wavering shadows across the faces of the men who are still out there, moving through the haze. Imagine a small, wooden rowboat, moving slowly through this altered landscape. The two young sailors inside are covered in soot, their once white uniforms stained and heavy. They are exhausted, their shoulders aching, but they do not stop rowing. The wooden oars dip softly into the thick, dark water, making a muffled, heavy sound with every stroke. Pull, glide. Pull, glide. They are moving with a quiet, deliberate grace, searching the surface of the water for their brothers. One of the boys, a farm kid from the sweeping, golden fields of the Midwest, leans over the edge of the small boat. His eyes are squinting against the stinging smoke. He is looking for movement. He is looking for life. Suddenly, he sees a hand rise from the dark, oil-slicked water. Just a hand, trembling and weak, reaching up toward the gray sky. The young man does not hesitate. He drops his oar. He leans his entire body over the side of the wooden boat, reaching his own arms down into the warm, heavy oil. He feels the slick, desperate grip of another human being. It is a sailor from a sunken ship, a boy who has been treading water for what must feel like an eternity, his strength nearly gone. The oil makes it incredibly difficult to hold on. They are slipping, but the boy in the boat refuses to let go. He anchors his knees against the wooden ribs of the hull, gritting his teeth, and pulls with all the remaining strength in his tired body. Slowly, carefully, he hauls the survivor up over the edge of the boat. The rescued boy collapses onto the wooden floorboards, coughing, his eyes wide and completely ringed in black. He is shivering violently, though the air is warm. The farm boy kneels beside him. He takes off his own ruined, damp shirt and drapes it gently over the shivering shoulders of the stranger. He reaches out, using his thumb to softly wipe a thick streak of oil away from the boy's eyes, so he can see the sky again. They do not exchange names. They do not ask where the other is from. In the quiet, rocking cradle of the rowboat, they simply share a profound, unspoken understanding. You are safe now, the gesture says. I have you. We are going home. This is the quiet, everyday heroism that rises from the ashes of a broken world. It is the heartbreakingly beautiful choice to reach into the dark and pull someone else into the light. As the small boat rows back toward the shore, the sky begins to weep. It is not raining water. It is raining ash. The great fires from the harbor have sent thousands of delicate, gray flakes high into the atmosphere, and now they are falling back to the earth. They drift down over the island with a soft, eerie silence. They fall onto the decks of the ships. They fall onto the green, broad leaves of the banana trees. They fall onto the neat, white porches of the civilian homes up in the hills. Imagine a mother standing on her lawn, watching this dark snow descend. She holds out her hand, and a piece of ash lands softly on her palm. It is completely weightless, a fragile wisp of gray that dissolves at the slightest touch. Yet, the emotional weight of it is staggering. This ash is the Physical memory of what has just happened. It is the remnants of ships, of letters written but never sent, of a peaceful morning that burned away too quickly. She watches as it coats the bright pink petals of her hibiscus flowers, turning their vibrant color dull and muted. She feels a profound sadness settling into her chest, a heavy, quiet grief for the boys down in the harbor, for the innocence her island has lost. But there is resilience in her, too. She turns back to her house, walking softly up the wooden steps. She knows that tomorrow, or the day after, she will bring out her broom. She will sweep the porch. She will wash the flowers. She will help the island breathe again. The reality of that afternoon is a heavy thing to carry. The burning water, the exhausted faces wrapped in dark oil, the ash falling on paradise, these are stark, unflinching images. History is often smoothed over by time, the harsh edges sanded down to make the stories easier to tell. But the true depth of their resilience can only be understood when we acknowledge the grim, unvarnished reality they had to face. Connecting with these raw, uncensored truths builds a profound empathy in our hearts. It allows us to truly witness their sacrifice. Because I believe so deeply in honoring the complete truth of their experience, I have put together a special digital collection on Gumroad. It contains unseen, raw archival visuals of the aftermath, images and footage that are simply too restricted and unfiltered to share on this platform. It is a space for those who want to confront the reality of the war, so they can fully grasp the incredible magnitude of the human spirit that survived it. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. It is a quiet, respectful offering for those who wish to look history directly in the eyes. Now, let us return to the shoreline, where the small rowboat has finally touched the sand. The survivor is lifted gently from the wooden floorboards. There are hands waiting for him. Civilian workers, nurses, and fellow sailors are wading into the shallow water, their trousers rolled up, their arms extended. They carry the exhausted boy up onto the grass, laying him down under the shade of a large banyan tree. The grass here is already crowded with young men, wrapped in blankets, sitting in the heavy, stunned silence of the afternoon. A young local woman, who had been on her way to church when the sky broke, is kneeling on the ground. She has brought a stack of clean, white towels from her own bathroom. She dips a towel into a basin of fresh water and moves from boy to boy. Her movements are incredibly slow, incredibly tender. She comes to the boy who was just pulled from the boat. She smiles at him, a soft, heartbreakingly kind smile. She gently presses the cool, damp towel against his forehead, wiping away the thick, sticky ash and the heavy oil. She washes his cheeks, careful not to press too hard. She washes his hands, wiping the soot from his fingernails. With every stroke of the white cloth, a little bit of his humanity is uncovered. The dark, terrifying mask of the harbor is wiped away, revealing the soft, frightened face of a teenager who just wants his mother. He looks up at the young woman, his eyes brimming with tears that cut clear paths through the remaining dust on his face. "Thank you," he whispers, his voice cracking, barely louder than the rustling of the leaves above them. "Hush now," she murmurs, her voice like a soothing balm. "Rest. You are on solid ground. This is the weight of the ash. It is the physical burden of survival, the sticky, heavy coating of a tragedy that clings to the skin and the soul. But it is also the profound grace of the hands that help to wash it away." As the hours stretch on, the sun begins to lower itself toward the horizon, casting long, golden shadows across the lawns that serve as makeshift sanctuaries. The wind has died down completely. The air is warm, thick with the scent of the ocean and the lingering, metallic tang of the smoke. The boys sitting on the grass begin to find each other. A sailor with a bandaged arm walks slowly through the groups, peering intensely at the blackened faces, searching for his shipmates. When he spots a familiar face, a friend from his own compartment, his shoulders drop with a heavy, overwhelming relief. He kneels down in the grass. They do not hug. They do not cheer. They just lean their shoulders against one another, sitting in the absolute quiet, staring out at the water. They are thinking of the letters they wrote the night before. They are wondering if those canvas mailbags survived the fire, if their words will ever reach the quiet front porches and the warm kitchens of the mainland. They are carrying a new, invisible weight inside them, the memory of the noise, the memory of the dark, the memory of the brothers who are still resting in the deep. It is a weight they will carry for the rest of their lives. It will be there in the quiet moments before sleep. It will be there in the smell of burning wood, or the sudden sound of a low-flying plane. The ash will settle deep into their bones. But as they sit there, leaning against each other on the damp grass, they also carry something else. They carry the absolute certainty that they are not alone. They know, with a profound and intimate clarity, that when the world collapsed, they did not run. They reached out. They pulled each other from the fire. They shared their breath, their blankets, their clean water, and their courage. Let the evening slowly drape its quiet, velvet blanket over the island. Let the banyan tree shade them from the fading sun. The ash is still falling, a silent, gray reminder of the morning, but the hearts beating beneath it are fiercely, stubbornly alive. Rest here in the quiet with them. Feel the solid earth beneath you, the gentle rise and fall of their breathing, and the enduring, unbreakable strength of the human spirit that shines even in the darkest, heaviest of ashes. Long before a letter can cross the ocean, a single spark of electricity can carry a broken heart all the way home. Take a slow, deep breath, and let the heavy smoke of the harbor fade from your mind. Let us leave the island of Oahu for a moment. Let us travel along the invisible threads that tie that warm, emerald paradise to the rest of the world. In the hours after the sky grew quiet, a different kind of storm began to build. It was not a storm of iron and fire, but a quiet, invisible storm of words, carried on the wind, racing across the vast expanse of the Pacific. Imagine a small, dimly lit communications room on the island. The air is thick and warm, smelling faintly of ozone, old paper, and stale coffee. Inside this room, a handful of young men sit hunched over heavy metal telegraph machines. Their faces are pale, smeared with the gray ash of the morning. They are exhausted, their shoulders slumped, but their hands are moving with a frantic, desperate grace. Listen to the sound of the room. It is a rhythmic, metallic clicking. Click, clack. Dot, dash. It is a strange, staccato language, a mechanical heartbeat tapping out into the void. These young men carry a profound, almost unbearable burden. They are the translators of tragedy. They are taking the overwhelming, incomprehensible sorrow of the morning and condensing it into brief, electric pulses. They are sending the first fractured whispers of what has happened back to the mainland. Some of the messages are official, bound for the high offices of the capital. But so many more are personal. They are frantic, desperate messages from sailors who made it to the shore, paying a few cents to send a handful of words to their mothers, their fathers, their wives. I am safe. Do not worry. Love you. 3 small sentences. A handful of letters. But as the operator presses his fingers to the keys, sending those words down the cables that rest on the dark, quiet floor of the ocean, he knows he is sending a miracle. He knows that when those words arrive, they will be the most beautiful thing a mother has ever read. Let us follow those invisible sparks under the sea. Let us cross the thousands of miles of deep, silent water and emerge on the shores of the mainland. It is Sunday afternoon here. The sun has already begun to set on the east coast, casting long, purple shadows across the snow-covered lawns of winter. It is a peaceful, ordinary day. In millions of homes, families are gathered in their living rooms. The fireplaces are crackling, filling the rooms with the scent of burning pine. Children are laying on woven rugs, reading the Sunday comic strips. In the center of the room, the large, wooden cabinet of the family radio is glowing with a soft, warm, amber light. Families are listening to a symphony broadcast, the sweeping sounds of violins and cellos wrapping the room in a cozy, domestic comfort. And then, the music stops. There is a sudden, crackling static. The announcer's voice cuts through the warm air. His voice is different. It is tight, serious, and completely devoid of its usual Sunday warmth. He reads a brief, fragmented news bulletin. He speaks of the island in the Pacific. He speaks of the harbor, the ships, the sudden shadow from the sky. In an instant, the warmth of the living room vanishes. Imagine a father sitting in his armchair, a cup of coffee halfway to his lips. He freezes. The coffee cup begins to rattle softly against the saucer in his trembling hand. He has a son stationed on one of those great gray ships. Across the room, the mother drops her knitting needles into her lap. She looks at the radio, staring at the glowing amber dial as if it has suddenly turned into a ghost. The silence that falls over the living room is profound. It is a suffocating, heavy quiet, broken only by the crackle of the wood in the fireplace and the continued, grim voice of the announcer. The vast, protective distance of the ocean has suddenly evaporated. The war is no longer a rumor happening to someone else. It has stepped right through their front door, into their quiet Sunday afternoon. And now, the waiting begins. It is an agonizing, silent vigil. Families sit by their telephones, praying for them to ring, and terrified of what they might hear if they do. They look out their frost-covered windows, watching the quiet street, waiting for a sign. In the days that followed, that sign often came on a bicycle. Imagine a young boy, barely 16 years old, wearing the crisp uniform of a Western Union messenger. He is pedaling his bicycle through the slush and the snow of a quiet neighborhood in Ohio. His breath puffs in small white clouds in the freezing air. Usually, his job is a joyful one. He delivers birthday greetings, birth announcements, words of congratulations. But today, the leather pouch slung across his shoulder feels heavier than it ever has before. It is filled with small, yellow envelopes. He pulls his bicycle up to the curb in front of a small, white house with a porch swing. He leaves the bike resting against the icy wood of the steps. He reaches into his pouch and pulls out a yellow envelope. He looks at the name typed on the front. He takes a deep breath, steeling his young heart against the pain he is about to deliver, and he walks up the steps. He knocks on the wooden door. The door opens. A mother stands there, wiping her hands on an apron. She sees the uniform. She sees the yellow envelope in his hand. Her breath catches in her throat. She reaches out, her hand trembling violently, and takes the paper. There is a profound, physical weight to that yellow telegram. It is just a thin piece of paper, but it holds the power to change a life forever. It is a tangible piece of history, carried across the world, placed directly into the hands of someone who loved a boy in a white uniform. Holding that paper, tracing the typed letters with a trembling finger, made the distant tragedy heartbreakingly real. There is something deeply powerful about holding the physical remnants of the past in your own hands. The tactile connection to history, feeling the weight of an object, turning the pages of a book, holding something that represents the incredible resilience of that era, bridges the gap of time in a way that nothing else can. It connects us to the reality of those quiet, domestic moments of waiting and wondering. If you feel drawn to that tangible connection, to holding the history of the home front and the brave men of the Pacific, I always love to recommend exploring the authentic WWII memorabilia or the beautifully bound physical history books available on Amazon. Having a piece of that history on your own bookshelf, or holding a replica of the things they carried, is a deeply comforting way to honor their memory. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. It is a gentle way to keep the past close, where it can be touched and remembered. Let us return to that snowy porch, to the quiet grace of the home front. Sometimes, the yellow envelope held a miracle. The mother would tear it open, her eyes scanning the brief, staccato words typed on the paper. Safe and unhurt. Letter follows. Love. She would press the telegram to her chest, falling to her knees on the cold porch, weeping tears of such profound, overwhelming relief that she could not catch her breath. She would invite the young messenger boy inside, offering him a warm cup of cocoa, her house suddenly filled with light once more. But sometimes, the envelope held the other words. The formal, polite, devastating words from the War Department. The Secretary of the Navy deeply regrets to inform you. When those words arrived, the silence in the house became permanent. The mother would fold the paper carefully, her face a mask of quiet, unbearable shock. She would thank the messenger boy, her voice barely a whisper, and softly close the door against the winter cold. Behind that door, a new, lifelong journey of resilience would begin. The grief of the home front was a quiet, private thing. It was born in the kitchens, in the empty bedrooms, on the snowy front porches. It was a courage that did not wear a uniform, but it was just as fierce and just as beautiful as the courage shown on the decks of the burning ships. And then, there was the heartbreaking phenomenon of the letters that crossed in the mail. Because the ships and planes carrying the mail took weeks to cross the ocean, the timeline of love became fractured. A week after the dark Sunday, a family might walk out to their tin mailbox at the end of a dirt road in Kansas. Inside, they would find a letter with a Hawaiian postmark. They would sit at their kitchen table and open it. It is a letter written by their son, dated just 2 days before the attack. His handwriting is looping and cheerful. He writes about the warm sun, the beautiful blue water, the sweet taste of the pineapple. He jokes about his friends and promises he will be home for Christmas next year. The family reads his words, hearing his living, laughing voice in their minds. But resting on the table, right next to the letter, is the yellow telegram they received the day before. The telegram that says he is gone. To hold those two pieces of paper at the same time, the echo of a happy past and the harsh, unyielding reality of the present, required a strength that is almost beyond comprehension. It was a quiet, crushing weight. Yet, they did not break completely. They framed the letters. They tucked the telegrams into family Bibles. They held onto the beautiful memory of the boy in the sunshine, and they carried it with them into the long, dark years that followed. As the week wears on, the telegraph offices in the mainland cities are flooded. The lines stretch out the doors and down the snowy sidewalks. Parents, wives, and siblings wait for hours in the freezing cold, just to send a few desperate words back across the ocean. Are you safe? Please wire. We love you. The invisible winds are blowing in both directions now. The air is thick with the electric pulses of millions of broken hearts, reaching out across the dark water, searching for a sign of life. Let the image of that snowy evening rest in your mind. The porch swaying gently in the cold wind. The warm, amber glow of the radio dial in the living room. The small, yellow envelope resting on the kitchen table. These are the quiet, profound moments where history was truly lived. Not in the roar of the battle, but in the silent, heavy breathing of a family waiting in the dark. As the night falls over the mainland, the snow continues to drift down, covering the streets in a soft, white blanket. The houses are quiet. The radios have been turned off. But the invisible threads still hum beneath the ocean, carrying the whispers of a nation. The words borne on the wind are words of fear, of sorrow, and of an enduring, unshakable love. Rest now, and let those gentle whispers carry you into the quiet of the night. When the fires finally burn down to embers, it is the quiet, heavy work of the hands that must try to put the world back together. Breathe in with me, slowly, and let the air out into the stillness of a new day. The long, terrifying night has finally surrendered to the morning. The sun has risen over the Pacific, painting the sky in the familiar, gentle pastels of a Hawaiian dawn. It is a strange and beautiful sky, completely untouched by the sorrows of the earth below. The clouds drift lazily, soft and white, looking down on an island that has been forever changed. The roaring of the planes is gone. The thunder of the explosions has faded into memory. Now, there is only the lingering, metallic scent of smoke and the quiet, rhythmic lapping of the harbor water against the shoreline. In the days that followed the dark Sunday, a new kind of heroism emerged. It was not the frantic, adrenaline-fueled bravery of the battle. It was a slower, deeper kind of courage. It was the courage to stay, to sift through the ashes, and to gently search for the pieces of a shattered world. Imagine the edge of the harbor in the early morning mist. A group of young sailors stands on a wooden dock, looking out at the dark, oil-slicked water. They are exhausted, their faces pale and drawn, but they will not leave. They are waiting for the divers. Look at the young man sitting on the edge of the small wooden dive boat. He is a Navy diver, preparing to descend into the deep. His friends are helping him into the heavy, canvas suit. It is a cumbersome, difficult process. They bolt a massive brass helmet onto his shoulders. It looks like the armor of a medieval knight, heavy and cold. When he is ready, he nods slowly behind the thick glass faceplate. He slips beneath the surface of the water, leaving the bright sun behind. Down below, the world is silent and weightless. The water is murky, filled with floating debris and the dark curtain of spilled oil. The diver breathes in the recycled air, the rhythmic hiss of his own breath echoing inside the brass helmet. He walks with slow, heavy steps along the muddy floor of the harbor, moving toward the dark silhouette of a sunken ship. He is not looking for machines. He is looking for his brothers. He enters the broken hull with the utmost reverence. To him, this twisted steel is no longer just a ship. It is a sacred space. It is a quiet tomb. He moves through the darkened passageways, his hands feeling along the bulkheads in the dim light. When he finds someone resting in the deep, he does not recoil. He reaches out with his heavy canvas gloves, moving with an infinite, heartbreaking gentleness. He holds them carefully, wrapping them in a silent promise to bring them back to the light. It is a lonely, haunting task, working down there in the dark. But every time he rises to the surface, breaking through the oil and the water to hand a fallen sailor over to the waiting arms on the boat, he is returning a son to his mother. He is bringing a piece of certainty back to a world that has lost all its anchors. Back on the shore, the search continues in different ways. Imagine the wide, manicured lawns of the military bases. Men are standing in long, straight lines. They are holding their breath. An officer stands at the front, a clipboard in his hands, reading names from a piece of paper. It is the morning roll call. Smith. Here, sir, a voice calls out from the line. Johnson. Here, sir. The officer reads the next name. There is no answer. Just the gentle rustle of the palm fronds in the morning breeze. The officer pauses, the silence hanging heavy over the grass. He makes a small, quiet mark on his paper and moves to the next name. For the men standing in that line, the silence after a friend's name is a physical blow. It takes all their quiet resilience to remain standing at attention, to hold their sorrow tightly inside their chests, while the roll call of the missing echoes across the lawn. And yet, amid the agonizing quiet, there are also small, beautiful miracles. Think of a young nurse, walking through the crowded, busy wards of the hospital. She is carrying a tray of fresh bandages, her white uniform stained and wrinkled from days of endless work. She turns a corner, and she stops cold. Sitting on the edge of a cot, a bruised and battered sailor is slowly trying to tie his shoes. He had been listed as missing. For 3 days, his friends believed he was lost to the deep water. But here he is, breathing, sitting in a patch of morning sunlight. The nurse drops her tray. The clatter of the metal echoes in the hallway, but she doesn't care. She runs to him, throwing her arms around his neck, weeping tears of pure, overwhelming joy. He holds her back, resting his tired head against her shoulder, a small, weary smile breaking through the soot on his face. He tells her he was pulled from the water by a civilian fishing boat, resting in a local clinic until he was strong enough to walk. These sparks of light, these sudden, unexpected returns, are the miracles that keep the searchers going. They are the fragile embers of hope glowing in the dark ash. Piecing together the truth of those days is a delicate, painstaking effort. Just as those young men searched the dark waters to bring their brothers home, we too must sometimes search the obscured corners of the past to uncover the full, hidden picture of history. So much of the world's story takes place beneath the surface, in the quiet, unseen spaces where secrets are kept and shadow operations quietly shift the tide of nations. If you are someone who finds comfort and fascination in bringing these forgotten stories into the light, I have a gentle offering for you. I have written a free ebook titled The Shadow War: 5 Top Secret Operations That Shaped World War II. It is a careful, respectful look into the hidden realities that simmered just behind the curtain of the world stage. I share it as a gift through my weekly email newsletter, where we take the time to sit together and uncover the forgotten facts of the past. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. It is a quiet way to keep searching the embers of history, and to honor the stories that wait patiently in the dark to be found. Let us return now to the quiet hills above the harbor, where the earth itself is opening its arms to the fallen. The island of Oahu is a place of vibrant, overwhelming life. The soil is rich and red, smelling of ancient volcanic ash and sweet rain. In the days following the attack, that beautiful earth became a final resting place. Imagine a secluded, grassy slope, looking out over the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean. A group of young soldiers, their sleeves rolled up in the tropical heat, are leaning on wooden shovels. They are digging makeshift graves. It is hard, exhausting work, but they do not complain. They are digging with a quiet, solemn reverence. Every shovelful of dirt is an act of love. They lay their brothers down gently into the cool earth. They do not have proper coffins, only canvas shrouds, but they treat them with the majesty of kings. A chaplain stands at the head of the graves, a worn Bible open in his hands. The wind plays softly with the pages. He reads a psalm, his voice carrying over the rustling grass, offering words of eternal peace to boys who were taken far too soon. A bugler stands perfectly still against the blue sky, raising his instrument to his lips. The soft, mournful notes of taps float out over the hills, a heartbreaking lullaby drifting down to the water below. They play small, simple wooden crosses at the head of each mound of red dirt. Sometimes, a sailor will step forward, taking a small, personal item from his pocket, a silver coin, a woven bracelet, a polished stone, and place it gently on the fresh earth of his friend's grave. It is a silent goodbye, a token of a brotherhood that not even death can sever. These young men, who came to paradise to play baseball and swim in the warm surf, are now burying their youth in the Hawaiian soil. They are no longer innocent, but they are incredibly strong. Down in the harbor, the searchers find small, poignant fragments of the lives that were interrupted. A recovery crew, sifting through the wreckage of a shore office, finds a wooden desk that survived the fire. Inside the top drawer, resting perfectly undisturbed, is a pocket watch. The glass face is cracked, and the hands have stopped ticking, frozen forever at the exact moment the world changed. The man who finds it picks it up gently. He wipes the soot from the silver casing with his thumb. He knows this watch belonged to someone. It was a gift from a father, or a prize bought with the first savings of a young career. He places it carefully into a small canvas bag, marking it so it can eventually be sent home to a family on the mainland. To hold that watch, to wipe the ash from its face, is to perform a profound act of everyday heroism. It is a refusal to let the tragedy erase the humanity of the individuals who lived it. It is a promise that every life mattered, every detail was precious, and nothing will be left behind if it can be saved. As the days turn into a week, the heavy blanket of smoke finally begins to clear. The trade winds return, blowing fresh, clean air from the sea, gently sweeping the gray dust from the leaves of the palm trees. The island begins the slow, painful process of healing itself. The civilians return to their routines, their faces serious, their hearts heavier, but their hands steady. The women in the neighborhoods gather old clothes, washing them and sewing patches, sending them to the sailors who lost everything in the water. They bake bread and leave it on the doorsteps of the families who lost sons. The small moments of kindness multiply, weaving a tight, protective net over the grieving community. The search through the embers is not just a search for the lost. It is a search for the pieces of their own resilience. And in the red dirt of the graves, in the dark water of the harbor, and in the quiet sharing of a loaf of bread, they find it. They find that even when the sky shatters and the fires burn the world down to ash, the human capacity for love remains completely unbreakable. Let the image of the young diver, rising slowly from the dark water into the sunlight, rest in your mind. Let the sound of the shovel, gently turning the warm earth, lull you into a place of quiet peace. We honor those who searched, those who waited, and those who rested in the deep. Their stories are safely gathered now. The embers are cooling, the sun is setting over the beautiful, scarred island, and it is finally time to sleep. Grief, when left to rest in the quiet of the heart, often wakes up as a steady and unshakable strength. Breathe in with me, slowly, and let the air escape into the stillness of the night. Let us leave the immediate shadow of the smoke behind us now, and step gently into the days that followed. The island of Oahu is no longer trembling. The skies are clear, the trade winds have returned to rustle the palm fronds, and the ocean continues its endless, rhythmic breathing against the shore. But the world feels fundamentally different. The air is thicker, carrying a quiet, heavy purpose. The initial wave of shock, the profound and paralyzing disbelief that washed over the young men in the harbor, has slowly ebbed away. And in its wake, it left something entirely new. Imagine a young sailor standing before a small, cracked mirror in a dimly lit washroom. The harsh, terrifying noise of the attack has finally gone from his ears, replaced by a hushed, solemn quiet. He turns on the brass faucet and lets the cool water run over his hands. He splashes his face, washing away the last, stubborn traces of soot and ash from the shoreline. When he looks up, the face staring back at him in the glass is not the face he washed just a few days ago. The boyish innocence, the carefree smile that used to dream of weekend dances and cold-shaved ice, is gone. In its place is a profound, quiet maturity. His eyes are older, settled, looking out with a calm and steady gaze. He reaches for a towel, drying his face with deliberate, careful motions. He has crossed an invisible threshold. The childhood he brought with him to the islands was left behind in the dark waters of the harbor, and an unexpected adulthood has been placed firmly upon his shoulders. He walks back to his bunk. He does not sit and weep. Instead, he reaches for a pen and a piece of paper. He begins to write a letter home, but the words are different now. He does not write about the beautiful weather. He does not write about his fears. He writes to his father, his handwriting pressing firmly into the page. "I am okay," he writes softly. "Do not worry about me. We have a lot of work to do now, but we are standing tall. Tell Mother I love her, and tell my little brother I am looking out for him." He folds the paper with steady hands. There is no anger in his movements, no loud cries for vengeance. There is only a deep, protective resolve. He is no longer just a boy in a uniform, he is a guardian, quietly accepting the weight of the world. This quiet awakening was not just happening in the barracks of Hawaii. It was a silent, powerful shift that was rolling across the ocean, touching every corner of the mainland. Let us travel across the water, to a small, snow-covered town in the heartland. It is early morning. The air is freezing, biting at the cheeks, and the sky is the pale, bruised gray of a deep winter. The streets are perfectly quiet, insulated by a thick blanket of fresh snow. Outside a brick building on the main square, a line of young men has begun to form. They are farm hands in heavy canvas coats. They are bakers with flour still dusting their knuckles. They are older brothers and quiet sons. They stand on the icy sidewalk, their hands thrust deep into their pockets to ward off the cold. There are no marching bands playing. There are no loud speeches, no cheering crowds, no flags waving in the wind. There is only the soft, crunching sound of boots shifting in the snow, and the quiet murmur of hushed conversations. They have heard the news on their living room radios. They have heard about the broken ships and the boys sleeping in the deep water. And so, they have left their warm homes, walked through the dark morning, and lined up outside the recruiting office before the doors have even opened. Look at the face of the young man near the front of the line. He watches his breath plume in the freezing air. He thinks of his family still sleeping in their warm beds. He loves them so fiercely that his chest aches. He is not standing in this line out of a desire for glory. He is standing here out of love. He is stepping forward into the unknown to build a wall between the people he loves and the storm that has broken over the horizon. It is a profound, incredibly moving sight. Millions of individual, beating hearts, separated by vast distances, suddenly breathing in perfectly synchronized rhythm. It is the collective effort of ordinary people rising up, not with a terrifying roar, but with the quiet, unstoppable momentum of a rising tide. There is a profound beauty in this kind of collective effort, in the way a community can weave its individual strengths together to support something larger than themselves. Bringing these gentle, deeply human stories to life, and dedicating the time to uncover the quiet moments of resilience that history often overlooks, takes a dedicated community as well. If you find comfort in these stories, and if you would like to help support the deep research and the long hours required to keep these documentaries alive, I have a small jar over on Ko-Fi. Even a tip as small as $1 is a beautiful way to join this collective effort, helping to ensure these quiet voices are never forgotten. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. It is your quiet support that allows this space to remain a warm, safe harbor for our shared history. Now, let us return to the quiet winter morning on the mainland, where the sun is just beginning to break through the gray clouds. The awakening of this giant was not limited to the young men in wool coats. It reached into the kitchens, the schoolyards, and the quiet neighborhoods. Imagine a mother standing at her kitchen sink, looking out at her frosted garden. Just a few days ago, her biggest worry was whether the winter frost would ruin her dormant roses. Today, she watches her husband button his heavy coat and walk out the door, carrying a metal lunchbox. He used to work the day shift, building ordinary machines for ordinary lives. Now, the factory has turned its lights on through the night. The immense, sprawling buildings on the edges of the towns are humming with a new, relentless energy. She dries her hands on a dish towel. She looks at a photograph of her son, resting on the mantel in a silver frame. She walks into her bedroom and pulls a sturdy, denim shirt from the closet. She ties her hair back with a patterned scarf, sweeping it away from her face. She, too, is going to work. The hands that once kneaded bread and mended torn knees on children's trousers are going to learn how to guide heavy steel, how to drive rivets, how to build the wings that will carry their boys back home. There is a quiet heroism in her steps as she walks down the icy sidewalk toward the factory. She is frightened, yes. The world has become a vast and terrifying place. But she pushes the fear down, burying it beneath a mountain of gentle, unyielding determination. The giant is awakening in her, too. It is the fierce, protective love of a mother translated into the steady, rhythmic clang of a factory floor. Even the children feel the shift. A young girl pulls a wooden wagon through her neighborhood, knocking on doors, politely asking her neighbors for scrap metal, old tires, and tin cans. Her small contribution, added to millions of others, becomes the lifeblood of a nation mending its armor. It is a tapestry of millions of tiny, beautiful acts of devotion. Back in the warm, salty air of Pearl Harbor, the transformation is just as profound. The harbor is no longer a place of weeping. It has become a place of extraordinary, back-breaking labor. The boys who survived the fire have refused to turn away from the wreckage. They are determined to heal their home. As night falls over the island, the dark water of the harbor begins to glow. It is not the terrifying, orange glow of the fires anymore. It is the brilliant, sparking blue and white light of 1,000 welding torches. Men are hanging from makeshift scaffolding, their faces hidden behind heavy masks, cutting away the twisted steel, patching the broken holes. The shower of sparks falls toward the water like a localized meteor shower, beautiful and full of purpose. They work in the dark, they work in the rain, they work until their hands are blistered and their muscles tremble. When one man tires, another simply steps in to take his place, taking the heavy torch from his hands with a quiet nod. They are literally sewing their ships back together. Imagine a diver slipping back into the dark water, not to search for the lost, but to wrap heavy chains around the sunken steel. Up on the shore, massive winches groan and strain, pulling with the strength of 100 men. Slowly, agonizingly, the rusted, mud-covered hull of a sunken ship breaks the surface of the water, water cascading from its decks like a waterfall. The boys on the shore stop and watch. A quiet, collective breath is released. They are raising their ships from the dead. Every inch of steel brought back to the surface is a promise kept. It is a physical manifestation of their refusal to be broken. The letters that cross the ocean now are filled with this new, quiet strength. A husband writes to his wife from the damp, noisy belly of a ship that is being repaired. The work is hard, he writes, but it is good work. My hands are dirty, but my heart is clear. I know what I have to do now. Keep the house warm for me. I will see you when the job is done. These are not the dramatic, sweeping declarations of movie heroes. They are the simple, grounded words of ordinary people who have discovered an extraordinary well of resilience within themselves. The grief has not vanished, it is still there, a heavy stone carried in the pocket. But it has been surrounded by a profound, gentle strength. As we sit in the quiet of this moment, let us honor that incredible shift. The sleeping giant was not a monster made of rage. It was a nation of farmers, nurses, mechanics, and mothers, opening their eyes and realizing that the things they loved were worth standing up for. It was the quiet dignity of a boy in a cracked mirror, the patient line in the snow, the sparks falling over the harbor. Let the image of that gentle, unshakable strength rest with you. The world can be a dark and unpredictable place, but the human spirit possesses a quiet elasticity that is truly magnificent. When it is pulled and stretched by sorrow, it does not snap. It holds. It bears the weight. And then, slowly, it begins to pull the pieces back together. The night is deep, and the stars are shining down on the sleeping mainland and the gentle Pacific alike. Feel the quiet rhythm of your own breathing, a steady, peaceful echo of that same enduring strength. Rest now, knowing that the deepest courage is often the quietest, and that even in the wake of the darkest storms, the morning always brings the strength to rebuild. There are marks left upon the skin, and marks left upon the soul, but the most beautiful marks are the ones that tie us to each other. Take a slow, deep breath in, drawing the quiet air into your lungs, and let it out with a soft, peaceful sigh. We are traveling forward now, letting the heavy smoke of that Sunday morning dissolve into the gentle mists of time. The years have begun to turn, like the slow, steady wheel of a great ship correcting its course. The island of Oahu has healed. The green vines have grown over the shattered concrete, and the hibiscus flowers bloom just as brightly as they did before the sky fell. The world has moved on, spinning quietly in the dark vastness of space. But for the boys who were there, the mourning never entirely faded. It simply changed shape. They returned to the mainland, to the snowy streets of New England, to the sweeping, golden plains of the Midwest, to the bustling, brick-lined neighborhoods of the cities. They took off their crisp white uniforms and traded them for overalls, for business suits, for the quiet, ordinary clothes of civilian life. They became fathers. They became grandfathers. They built houses, planted gardens, and sat on wooden porches to watch the evening sun go down. But beneath the sleeves of their shirts, and deep within the quiet rooms of their hearts, they carried the remnants of the fire. Imagine an older man sitting at his kitchen table. It is early morning, and the house is perfectly still. The only sound is the rhythmic, comforting tick of a grandfather clock in the hallway. He holds a thick, ceramic mug of hot coffee, feeling the warmth seep into his hands. He rests his arms on the wooden table, and his sleeve pulls back just a little. There, on his forearm, is a scar. It is smooth and silvery, a patch of skin that tells a story of burning oil and dark water. He looks at it in the soft, golden light filtering through the window. He does not look at it with anger. He does not look at it with fear. He traces the edge of it with his thumb, his touch light and gentle. When he looks at that scar, he does not see the enemy planes. He sees the face of the young sailor from Brooklyn who reached down into the dark water, grabbed his burning hand, and pulled him up into the wooden rowboat. He sees the absolute, unyielding grip of a brother who refused to let him sink. That physical scar is not a mark of pain. It is a ribbon. It is a tangible, lifelong tether connecting him to a boy he might not have spoken to since that day, but a boy who holds a permanent, sacred space in his soul. It is a scar that binds. Not all the scars are visible to the eye. Some of the deepest marks were carried silently, hidden away behind kind smiles and quiet, gentle lives. Let us travel to a small bedroom on a summer night. The windows are open, letting in the cool, damp breeze of an approaching rainstorm. A veteran is sleeping next to his wife. The cotton sheets are soft and familiar. But outside, the sky flashes with a sudden, brilliant streak of lightning, followed instantly by a sharp, deafening crack of thunder that rattles the window panes. In an instant, the man is awake. His breath catches in his throat. For one terrifying, disorienting heartbeat, he is not in his soft bed. He is back in the dark, metallic belly of a sinking ship. He is back in the smoke. His heart races, a frantic drum beating against his ribs. But then, a hand reaches across the dark. It is his wife. She does not ask what is wrong. She already knows. She has known for decades. She simply rests her warm, steady hand over his heart. She moves closer, resting her head against his shoulder. "I am here," she whispers, her voice a soft, soothing melody in the dark room. "You are home. It is only the rain." He closes his eyes. He focuses on the warmth of her hand, on the steady, rhythmic sound of her breathing. The illusion of the smoke slowly dissipates, washed away by the gentle reality of her love. He exhales, his shoulders dropping into the mattress. This is the quiet, unsung heroism of the homes they return to. The spouses, the families, who held the space for their healing. They learned the contours of these invisible scars and treated them with infinite tenderness. They became the soft landing places, the quiet harbors where these men could finally rest their heavy burdens. The survivors themselves formed a unique, unbreakable web across the country. Imagine a wooden desk in a quiet study. The drawer opens, and inside is a neat stack of envelopes tied together with a faded piece of twine. These are not letters written during the war. These are the letters written after. Every December, as the air grew cold and the anniversary of the dark Sunday approached, the pens would come out. A man in California would sit at his desk and write to a man in Ohio. The handwriting, once firm and bold, grows a little softer, a little shakier as the decades pass. But the words remain the same. just checking in, the letter reads. Thinking of you today. How are the grandchildren? How is your garden growing? They do not need to write about the harbor. They do not need to mention the roar of the planes or the smell of the ash. The simple fact that the letter was written, that the stamp was placed, is enough. It is a secret language. It is a way of saying, I remember. I am still here. We are still standing. They kept a lifelong night watch over one another. If one of them fell ill, the others would know. They would send small tokens, quiet prayers, and simple words of comfort. They formed a brotherhood that was entirely separate from the rest of the world. It was an exclusive, sacred club forged in the most unimaginable heat, bound together by a shared understanding that no one else could ever truly comprehend. When you look closely at history, you realize that it is not just a collection of events, it is a tapestry of communities. It is people coming together to hold the heavy things so that no one person has to carry them alone. These deep, lasting brotherhoods remind us of how vital it is to have a space where you are truly understood. If you feel a quiet calling to be part of a community that honors these profound bonds, a place where history is treated with gentleness and reverence, I would love to invite you to join our Patreon. It is a close-knit community of true history lovers. There, we step away from the noise of the world to share free podcasts, deep dives, and quiet reflections, creating a warm space to hold these memories together. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. It is a peaceful harbor of our own, built on a shared love for the human stories that connect us all. Now, let us return to those veterans, to the quiet grace of their later years. Sometimes, the letters and the phone calls were not enough. Sometimes, the scars called them to gather in person. Imagine a quiet reunion in a hotel ballroom, many years later. The men in the room are elderly now. They walk a little slower. Some lean on wooden canes. They wear comfortable sweaters and neat slacks. The bright, sharp boys of the Pacific Fleet have been softened by time. Watch two of them sitting together in the corner, resting in plush chairs. The room around them is filled with the gentle hum of conversation, the clinking of coffee cups on saucers. But these two men are silent. They simply sit side by side. One man looks down at his hands, his fingers gently tracing the edge of his coffee cup. The other looks out the window, watching the slow drift of the clouds. They sit in this silence for a long time. It is not an awkward silence. It is a silence so rich, so full of meaning, that it feels like a heavy, warm blanket. They are listening to the same echoes. They are seeing the same pristine morning, the same blue water, the same sudden shadow. They are mourning the boys who never grew old enough to sit in these plush chairs, the boys who remain forever young in the deep water of the harbor. To sit beside someone who completely understands the geography of your pain is a profound kind of peace. They do not need to explain the sudden tears that sometimes well up in their eyes. They do not need to apologize for the moments when their minds drift away from the present. The scars that bind them are also the scars that comfort them. As the afternoon light fades into a soft, golden evening, the reunion begins to wind down. The men stand up, their joints stiff, and turn to each other. They shake hands. It is a long, firm grip. They look deeply into each other's eyes. There is a whole world of love, of sorrow, and of unyielding respect in that single look. Take care of yourself, one whispers, his voice thick with emotion. You too, brother, the other replies softly. Until next time. They walk away, stepping out into the cool evening air, carrying the memory of that connection back to their separate lives. The scars they carry will never fully disappear. The burns, the memories, the sudden echoes in the dark, they are permanent fixtures of their existence. But time and love and the quiet understanding of their brothers have turned those wounds into something beautiful. They have become a testament to the resilience of the human heart. They are proof that even when the world tries to break us, we can heal. We can heal in a way that makes us stronger, more compassionate, and more deeply connected to the people around us. Let the image of those two men, sitting in the quiet companionship of shared memory, rest in your mind. Think of the letters crossing the country, the gentle touch of a spouse in the dark, the silver scar tracing a map of survival. The sky is darkening now, and the stars are stepping out into the night, shining their quiet, indifferent light over the mainland and the ocean. But the light of these human connections shines much warmer and much closer to home. Breathe out, letting your shoulders sink deeply into peace. Let the quiet stories of their survival wrap around you. The storm has long passed, the water is calm, and the scars that remain are simply the quiet, enduring proof that love, brotherhood, and the human spirit will always outlast the fire. Rest now, and let the gentle night hold you safe. Time is a quiet thief, slipping into our rooms on soft, unseen feet to steal the sharpness of our youth. Breathe in with me, a long, slow breath, and let it out into the quiet of the evening. Let the modern world, with all its loud and frantic rushing, simply melt away. We are traveling forward now, far past the smoke of the harbor, far past the immediate years of rebuilding and returning. We are walking gently into the twilight of a generation. The young boys in their crisp white uniforms, the ones who swam through the dark water and pulled their brothers from the fire, have grown old. The relentless, steady turning of the years has softened their shoulders and turned their hair the color of winter snow. Imagine a quiet room in a small house. It is late afternoon, and the sun is hanging low in the sky, casting long, golden rectangles of light across a worn, woven rug. In the corner of the room, sitting in a plush, velvet armchair, is an old man. The house is completely still, save for the rhythmic, soothing tick-tock of a clock on the mantel. He sits with a small, wooden box resting gently on his lap. The wood is smooth, polished by decades of his own touch. The brass hinges creak with a soft, familiar sound as he slowly opens the lid. Inside, it smells of dry cedar, old paper, and the faint, sweet ghost of a life lived long ago. His hands, resting on the edge of the box, are no longer the strong, unyielding hands of a young sailor. They are fragile now. The skin is thin, mapped with the blue rivers of his veins, and they tremble ever so slightly. These are the hands that once gripped a heavy canvas hose, the hands that held tightly to the railing of a shuddering ship, the hands that wrote frantic, desperate telegrams home. Now, they reach into the box with a beautiful, heartbreaking tenderness. He pulls out a small stack of letters, tied together with a faded piece of cotton string. He slips the top letter from the bundle and unfolds it. The paper is incredibly brittle, yellowed at the edges like autumn leaves. He adjusts his reading glasses, sliding them up the bridge of his nose, and looks down at the words. The blue ink is fading. In some places, it has almost entirely vanished into the grain of the paper, becoming a pale, ghostly whisper of what it used to be. He reads the words, though he does not really need to. He has memorized every loop and curve of the handwriting. It is a letter from a friend, a boy who slept in the bunk below his, written just a few days before the sky broke apart. The boy writes about a girl he hopes to marry. He writes about the warm Hawaiian breeze. As the old man reads, a profound, quiet melancholy settles over his shoulders. It is the heavy, beautiful burden of being the one who lived. There is a strange and bittersweet reality to surviving. For this old man, the passage of time is a luxury his friends never received. The boys he left behind in the dark, warm waters of the harbor never grew old. They never felt their knees ache with the coming of the rain. They never watched their children grow tall, and they never held a grandchild in their trembling arms. In his mind, in the quiet sanctuary of his memory, they are frozen in time. They are forever 19. They are forever laughing in the tropical sun, forever young, forever brave. He looks up from the letter and glances at his own reflection in the dark glass of the window pane. He sees the deep lines etched into his face, the map of a long, full life. He has lived an entire lifetime for them. He built a quiet, steady life, filled with ordinary joys and ordinary sorrows, as a silent tribute to the lives they were denied. But as he looks back down at the fading blue ink, a new, private fear flutters in his chest. It is a quiet anxiety that visits him in the lonely hours of the night. He knows that his own memory is beginning to soften at the edges. The exact shade of the Hawaiian water is getting harder to picture. The sound of his friends' laughter is growing fainter, like a radio station slowly drifting out of tune. He wonders, with a gentle, aching sorrow, what will happen when he is gone. Who will carry the memory when the last of the footsteps fade away? When the ink entirely vanishes from the page, who will be left to tell the story of the boys in the harbor? This fragile transition, this passing of history from living, breathing memory into the silent archives of the past, is a profoundly delicate moment. As the veterans grow older, and as the physical artifacts of their lives begin to crumble into dust, the truth of their experience becomes vulnerable. If we only remember the sanitized, polished versions of history, we lose the deep, unvarnished humanity of their sacrifice. We lose the raw, uncensored reality of what they truly endured to give us the peaceful mornings we enjoy today. Because time is so relentless, and because these living memories are fading, it becomes our sacred responsibility to hold onto the unvarnished truth. We must catch the falling leaves before they hit the ground. It is exactly why I have painstakingly gathered a digital collection on Gumroad, featuring the raw, unseen archival images and footage of that era. These are the restricted, unfiltered pieces of history that are often too harsh or real for public platforms, but they are absolutely vital for preserving the true magnitude of what these men survived. Offering access to these raw archives is a deeply personal endeavor to ensure their reality never fades. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. It is my way, and our way together, to promise that the fading ink will not be the end of their story. Let us return to the quiet room, where the golden light is beginning to soften into the pale blues and purples of twilight. The old man gently folds the brittle letter, pressing it flat with the palm of his hand, and tucks it safely back into the wooden box. He closes the lid. The brass hinges give one final, soft creak. The door to his room opens, moving so silently on its hinges. A small girl, no more than 7 years old, peeks her head around the corner. She is wearing pajamas covered in tiny, painted stars. She holds a worn, stuffed bear under one arm. She sees him sitting in the chair and walks across the woven rug, her bare feet making no sound at all. She climbs up onto the arm of the velvet chair and leans her head against his shoulder. He wraps his arm around her, resting his cheek against the top of her head. She smells of soap and childhood innocence. "Grandpa," she whispers, her voice a tiny, delicate bell in the quiet room. "What is in the box?" He looks down at the smooth wood resting on his lap. He takes a long, slow breath. He does not want to frighten her. He does not want to fill her peaceful evening with stories of smoke and fire and echoing roars. He wants to protect her beautiful, fragile world, just as he and his brothers did all those decades ago. "It is a box of memories, little one," he says, his voice a low, comforting rumble in his chest. "It is a box full of very brave boys and very good friends." She reaches out her small, soft hand and traces the edge of the brass lock. "Are they still your friends?" she asks, innocently. He smiles, a soft, sad, deeply beautiful smile that crinkles the corners of his eyes. "Yes," he whispers. "They will always be my friends. I carry them right here." He taps his chest, just over his heart. In this quiet, deeply domestic moment, the torch is gently passed. He is not transferring the trauma or the terror. He is transferring the love. He is teaching her that history is not just a collection of dates in a dusty textbook. History is the people we love. It is the promises we keep. It is the quiet resilience that allows a man to walk through the fire and still have a heart soft enough to hold a grandchild at twilight. As the years continue to roll forward, the ranks of the survivors grow thinner and thinner. The great reunions, which once filled massive hotel ballrooms with thousands of laughing, weeping men, slowly shrink. They move to smaller rooms. Then, to single tables and quiet diners. Until, eventually, the chairs sit empty. It is the natural, unavoidable rhythm of the world. The fading footsteps are walking away into the mist, their sound growing softer and softer, until there is nothing left but the quiet rustle of the wind through the palm trees. But if you listen very closely, in the stillness of the night, you can still hear the echo. You can hear the echo of a mother singing a lullaby under a dining room table while the sky falls outside. You can hear the echo of a frantic, metallic tapping on the inside of a sunken ship, a desperate, beautiful plea for life. You can hear the echo of a nurse's soft voice, promising a frightened boy that he is not alone. You can hear the scratching of a fountain pen on thin paper, writing words of love across a vast and lonely ocean. These echoes do not require loud monuments or grand parades to survive. They only require a quiet space in our hearts. They require us to sit in the stillness, just as we are doing now, and willingly hold the memory of their everyday heroism. The old man in the velvet chair closes his eyes. The little girl resting against his shoulder has fallen asleep, her breathing deep and even, a soft, rhythmic lullaby in the darkening room. He feels a profound sense of peace wash over him. His watch is almost over. He has carried the memory as far as he can, and he has carried it well. The burden is lifting. The fading blue ink no longer scares him, because he knows that love does not need ink to survive. It only needs to be felt, and shared, and remembered in the quiet dark. Let the twilight deepen around you. Let the soft, rhythmic ticking of the clock soothe your mind. The footsteps of the past are fading, yes, but they are walking into a beautiful, eternal rest. The boys of the harbor are sleeping soundly now, cradled in the deep, peaceful embrace of history. Breathe out, let go of the day, and let their quiet courage watch over you as you drift softly into the night. Even the deepest scars, when touched by the passage of time and the gentle, rocking rhythm of the sea, eventually soften into a beautiful, quiet peace. Breathe with me now, one long, slow breath in, filling your lungs with the cool evening air, and let it out with a soft, releasing sigh. We have traveled a long way together through the shadows. We have walked through the fragile morning, stood in the sudden fire, and sat in the quiet, ash-covered aftermath. But the story does not end in the smoke. The story of this island, and the story of the boys who never left it, ends in a profound and enduring sanctuary. Let us return to the harbor, one last time. It is no longer the past. We are standing in the gentle light of the present day. The world around the island has grown tall and modern, filled with the hum of a new century, but here, in the center of the water, time still moves at its own incredibly slow, reverent pace. The sky above is that perfect, flawless blue once again. The trade winds blow softly over the Kula Mountains, carrying the sweet, heavy scent of wild plumeria and the clean salt of the Pacific. Out in the middle of the shallow, turquoise water rests a structure of brilliant white. It is the memorial. It does not look like a fortress or a monument of war. It looks like a gentle, curving bridge, floating effortlessly over the surface of the harbor. It is designed to sag in the middle, representing the initial defeat, and to rise proudly at the edges, a symbol of the quiet, unbreakable resilience that followed. But the most beautiful thing about this white bridge is that it does not touch the ship below. It hovers just above the sunken steel of the USS Arizona, embracing the sleeping giant without ever disturbing its rest. Imagine stepping off a small boat and walking onto that white marble floor. The structure is open to the air, allowing the warm Hawaiian breeze to flow freely through the wide, bright windows. Listen to the sound of the people here. There are hundreds of visitors, people who have traveled from every corner of the globe, from the snowy plains of the mainland to the distant shores across the ocean. But there is no shouting. There is no loud laughter. Everyone who steps onto this bridge instinctively lowers their voice to a soft, reverent whisper. The air is filled with the quiet rustle of footsteps, the gentle lapping of the water against the concrete, and a heavy, beautiful respect. If you look over the railing, down into the clear blue water, you can see the rusted, coral-covered steel of the great ship resting in the sand. Schools of brightly colored fish dart through the open hatchways, bringing vibrant, darting life to the quiet gray decks. The ocean has claimed the ship, turning a machine of war into a thriving, peaceful reef. And then, there are the tears. Even now, after all these long decades, the Arizona still weeps. Small, delicate drops of dark oil release from the rusted tanks deep below the mud. They float slowly up to the surface, breaking into the sunlight. They spread out into beautiful, iridescent pools of violet, gold, and green, drifting gently away on the outgoing tide. It is a natural, poetic mourning. The earth itself is holding a quiet vigil, shedding these black tears day after day, year after year, refusing to let the memory of the boys sleeping below fade away into the deep. Walk with me to the far end of the white bridge, into the shrine room. The wall before you is made of smooth, pale marble, reaching from the floor to the ceiling. Carved into this warm stone are the names. So many names. They are not listed by rank or by age. They are listed together, a permanent, unbreakable brotherhood carved side by side into the face of eternity. Imagine an older woman standing before this wall. She has silver hair, pulled back neatly, and she leans slightly on a wooden cane. She reaches out a trembling hand, her fingertips gently tracing the carved letters of a single name. She never met the man whose name she is touching. He was her grandfather, a young boy from a dusty farm town who loved baseball and played the clarinet. He was 19 when the sky fell. The only piece of him she has ever known is a single, faded letter kept in a wooden box on her dresser, a letter where he wrote about how beautiful the Hawaiian stars looked at night. She closes her eyes, keeping her fingers pressed against the cool marble. She whispers a quiet "I love you" into the salty breeze. In that simple, solitary moment, the vast distance of time entirely collapses. The young boy from the letter and the granddaughter he never got to hold are finally together, connected by the unyielding power of love and memory. She reaches into her bag, pulls out a single, bright red hibiscus flower, and drops it gently into the water below, watching it float away on the gentle current. Standing in that quiet, white room, feeling the profound weight of history suspended in the air around you, it changes your heart. It makes you realize how deeply important it is to remember. Connecting with the past doesn't just happen at marble walls, it happens in the quiet moments we create in our own lives, when we choose to hold onto the stories that shaped us. Bringing those visual memories into your own home, having a piece of that era to look at and reflect upon, is a beautiful way to honor their sacrifice. If you wish to keep this deep connection alive, I warmly recommend exploring the meaningful WWII memorabilia, or sitting down to watch the carefully crafted historical documentaries available on Amazon. It is a gentle, comforting way to hold history in your hands and keep the faces of those brave young men alive in your living room. Please, to keep yourself safe, only use the secure link I've placed in the description below. If you try to search for this on the internet, the top results are unfortunately often fake websites designed to scam you, and I want to make sure you are protected. It is a quiet promise to the past, a vow that their bravery will always have a place in the light. Let the afternoon sun begin to lower over the harbor. The crowds slowly thin out. The last boat of visitors pulls away, the gentle hum of its engine fading into the distance. The white memorial is left completely alone, floating silently in the darkening water. The sky shifts from bright blue to a soft, bruised canvas of lavender, coral, and deep indigo. The shadows on the Kula Mountains grow long and heavy, wrapping the green peaks in a velvety blanket of evening. Down below, in the dark and quiet belly of the ship, the boys are resting. They are no longer frightened. The terrible noise of that morning has been entirely washed away by the slow, gentle tides of the Pacific. They do not feel the cold, and they do not feel the pain. They are surrounded by their brothers. The hands that reached out in the dark to pull each other from the rising water are still holding on. The boys who shared quiet jokes, who polished their shoes together, who wrote letters on adjacent bunks, they are together still, sleeping the deepest, most peaceful sleep imaginable. The harbor is their sanctuary now. The water rocks them, a massive, gentle cradle swaying to the ancient rhythm of the earth. In and out. In and out. It is a lullaby sung by the ocean. It is the sound of the waves folding onto the sand, the whisper of the wind through the tall grass on Ford Island, the distant, mournful cry of a seabird heading home to its nest. Let the peace of this place wash over you. Let go of the heavy things you are carrying today. The anxieties of the modern world, the rushing, the loud noises, let them all dissolve into the vast, dark water of the Pacific. Think of the tremendous resilience of the human heart. Think of the nurses who washed the soot from the faces of strangers. Think of the mothers who hid their children under tables. Think of the boys who stood in the fire because they loved the man standing next to them more than they feared the storm. That same immense, beautiful capacity for love, that same quiet, unshakable courage, exists inside of you. It is the unbroken thread that connects us all. The stars are stepping out now, one by one, piercing the velvet sky with tiny, brilliant points of silver light. They look exactly as they did on that quiet Saturday night before the world changed. They shine their gentle, indifferent light down on the white marble of the memorial, making it glow softly in the dark. The day of infamy is over. The long night has passed, the morning came, and now, a deep, eternal evening has settled over the harbor. Breathe out, long and slow. Sink deeply into the warmth of your bed. The world is safe, the water is calm, and the watch has been relieved. Good night, boys of the Pacific. Sleep well in your quiet harbor. You are remembered, you are deeply loved, and your watch is over. And to you, listening in the quiet dark, let the peaceful rhythm of the ocean carry you away. Rest your heavy eyes. Let the gentle lullaby of the harbor guide you into a deep, dreamless sleep. Good night.